the full-time mage. The extreme lightning. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 376. Crushing. Is this kid really just a high-level mage? Hanji was not the only one who was shocked. Pang Lei also looked at the field and muttered to himself. Although he has more magic, he is indeed a high-level mage. Although Xiao Zheng was also shocked by Tang Mao's strength, he was sure that Tang Mao was still just a high-level mage. Feng Li also nodded, which he was sure of. However, in addition to being shocked, there was more excitement. Because this powerful force came from the youth of China. At the same time, the compatriots watching the game here also cheered loudly. In the past Venice finals, only the audience from other countries were excited. The Chinese people just watched the game, that's all. After all, for many competitions, the players of the Chinese national government have never made it through the knockout stage. This year, it can no longer be called a dark horse, but a black dragon. It's simply unimpeded all the way. Although there are still 3 players in the UK, and even substitutes are waiting to play, it seems that they haven't lost yet. But after witnessing the battle just now, no one was optimistic about the British team. Even the British players felt a little depressed. After all, their beliefs had already been defeated. In this situation, why should they fight? At this time, Muningsu and others had also rushed over. Hibbert said with a chill in his heart, "Do we still have to continue fighting?" Vice Captain Sishton frowned and said angrily, "Why not fight?" Although Zheluo had already lost, although there was no hope. But he was ranked 7th after all. If he lost without fighting, how could he survive in the future? Boom. While speaking, flames burst out around Sishton. However, just when he wanted to open the domain, he found a gloomy and biting cold wind coming. Muningsu naturally would not give Sishton the opportunity to show her power. When she rushed over, her ice domain was fully opened. At the same time, Munigio and others also took action directly. Although they were all strong, not everyone could ignore other people's magic tools like Tang Mao. At the same time, he used high-level magic tools. He was able to resist the attacks of wind, flame, ice, and elemental magic. Although his magic tools were damaged, he was not hit in any substantial way. The game is over. The British team forfeit. China wins. Just as Muningsu and others were about to continue to attack, the referee's voice suddenly spread throughout the arena. When they heard the referee's voice, Sishton and others who were still prepared to hold on until the new players came on the court were all stunned. What? Then, Sishton looked outside the arena with doubt. The British national team's instructor looked at Sishton with a calm expression, as if he had heard it right. Their main force had been severely injured. It can be said that there is no possibility of recovery in a short time. If Sishton and others were allowed to hold on, the British team would still lose in the end. Then the question came, what would they use to continue fighting in the next battle? However, regardless of whether they were willing or not, the moment the referee announced, the game was completely over. Audiences from various countries expressed their inability to accept and imagine the situation in front of them. Even the people in the UK could not believe that all this was actually true. Question mark? As for the audiences in the countries that China was optimistic about, they cheered enthusiastically. Among them, of course, some people who wanted to take a chance accounted for the majority. A small profit, a big profit. Who would not be happy? The victory of China made everyone feel amazing. Similarly, the battle between Greece and Egypt also became a major focus of the winner group, because Egypt, which everyone thought would be beaten by Greece without any ability to fight back, actually used a set of tricks against Greece, and once again forcibly delayed the game to a time period full of undead. Egypt's performance was actually equally shocking. Their perfect teamwork and the sea of undead tactics forced the superpower Greece into a very embarrassing situation, and people all over the world were shouting for the rise of Egypt. Undead tactics. The Egyptian government team completely adhered to the characteristics of their own country, eliminating those mages who practiced other disciplines. 70% of the team was composed of mages who mainly practiced the undead. At first, People thought that this tactical victory was lucky and Canada should not lose to Egypt. As a result, in the second round, even Greece capsized in the gutter. Egypt and China entered the double winner group together. In the third round, all 3-game winning team will be directly decided. The winning team will directly skip the fourth round and compete with the other 7 teams selected in the fifth round. For the rise of Egypt, Fengli and others are actually a bit of a headache. Because the most inconspicuous country has used the most shameless means. They actually want to suppress by numbers. Speaking of it, he really doesn't know what strategy to use for the Egyptian team. Fengli felt that the excitement of winning the UK just now disappeared without a trace. Originally, they had a chance to win the championship this year, but this Cheng Yeojin who came out halfway had more than 3 tricks. People's desires are endless. When they first participated in the competition, the leaders of China felt that it was a great thing to get through the knockout rounds. After the treasure hunt, they felt that reaching the quarterfinals was already a great honor for the country. But after Tang Mao's strong operation, Britain had already lost. In this case, why not compete for the championship? But after seeing Egypt's disgusting tactics, Fengli felt that there seemed to be little hope. What Fengli thought was his own business. At this time, the members of the Guofu team had already gone to celebrate. To be able to defeat Britain, or to win so easily, except for Tang Mao, none of these people dared to imagine that this was true. Especially the few people who played. Almost all of them were excited. Jiang Yu and Ang Fanglai said, although we didn't do much, we played against Britain. Mu Nijio was also extremely happy. As long as this matter spread, the family behind her would also get the greatest benefit. And Muningsu also became completely famous because of this battle. Nanrangni and the others were envious of this situation. Although they had always known that Tang Mao was strong, this was the first time they had seen such a powerful display. But no one knew whether this was his full strength. Chapter 377, saying one word and meaning one mind. After the celebration banquet, he sent Muningsu and the others back and immediately went to find Irene. Although he would not do anything to betray his country, Irene was at least one of his foreign lovers. He had already challenged the girl at the beginning of the day, and it would be a bit too much if he did not express his gratitude. Tang Mao staggered all the way to the residence of the British government. Then he called her to make an appointment. Unlike what he imagined, Irene still had her gentle smile. I thought you would get drunk at the celebration banquet tonight. Seeing Tang Mao coming to find her late at night, Irene was not angry, but quite happy. Tang Mao was used to this. If he couldn't handle such a small matter well, how could he have the opportunity to have 3,000 beauties in the future? How could it be, in my heart, you are the most important? It seemed to be true, especially the expression, which was simply impeccable tonight. I can go out. Irene was very happy and said shyly. Tang Mao felt a bit overwhelmed when he heard this. He wondered in his heart if pure love was no longer sweet. It was mainly because he had been doing it too frequently recently. Just now at the celebration banquet, he tried the gentle Munijio. Then he checked the cold Muningsu. Fortunately, she was drunk by giant Izzy. Otherwise, let alone coming to see Irene, he would have to hold his old waist when he went down. He originally planned to show off and leave, but it turned out to be very embarrassing. Irene, I love you, not your body. It's late tonight. Go back and have a good rest. Although it was a headache, as a veteran, he couldn't just do nothing. When he encountered a headache, he could always resolve all his troubles by using his brain. After saying this, Tang Mao felt that it was absolutely beautiful. Irene naturally didn't know what was going on in Tang Mao's mind. However, because of what he said, she felt even more warm-hearted. After all, she always felt that Tang Mao was just craving for her. It's okay, I'm not tired, Irene said, pouting her little mouth and said, I didn't release any magic today, and I was sent off. Tang Mao didn't know what to say for a while, as if this girl really didn't have much consumption. After a pause, he said with a worried look for Irene, then aren't you afraid of going out with me and being questioned by your teammates? I don't want you to be affected. For his thoughtfulness, Irene felt that even in a dream, she would wake up with a smile. The taste of love is really sweet, don't worry, they dare not. Grand Duke Irene raised her little mouth slightly, very arrogantly. Her status is not low, and Tang Mao won them by strength. What is there to question? ZHELUO's chaos magic, the heart of destruction magic, the last one. But he broke it and exploded it. Okay, let's go, Irene said in a coquettish tone. Any normal man, how could he bear this? The waist that was numb just now was no longer painful. Then let's go. Men always say one thing and mean another. Even if they don't say it, their thoughts and their hearts are always the opposite. Irene didn't think so much and left here with Tang Mao. This night was always extraordinary. Even in the early morning, when Tang Mao couldn't even get up, he suddenly felt careless. Fortunately, Irene, a little girl, was finally tormented by herself in various ways and fainted. Of course, before everything, it was because Tang Mao blocked her magic power. Otherwise, it would be hard to say who is fainting now. The next day, Tang Mao left early in the morning. After all, the third round of the game will start the day after tomorrow. He also needs to practice and recuperate. As for whether to restore magic power or cultivate something else, that is unknown. When Irene woke up, her magic power had been restored. However, after seeing that there was no one around her, she felt somewhat disappointed. However, when she got up and saw the note beside the bed, she recovered some of her emotions. The note said, "The finals the day after tomorrow. I have returned to the dark cultivation." In any case, Tang Mao finally explained. At least it is not to tighten the belt and turn against people. In the next 2 days, no one in the Huaxia national government team went to find anyone. After winning a competition with Britain, the next game can be said to be crucial. If you want to become famous in one battle, it can be said that it is no longer a dream. Therefore, the family behind everyone has also made efforts again. This time, there is only one purpose for a large amount of investment. That is, to let their own people play once. Of course, it is definitely not enough to just play. The strength and foundation that should be shown are also perfectly displayed at that time. Everyone knows that, as long as this battle is won, then whether it is the students of the Huaxia national government this time or the forces behind them, it will definitely be greatly sublimated. And for Tang Mao, these were nothing to care about. However, the night before the battle with Egypt, Xiao Zheng came and brought what he wanted most at the moment. I have to say that this old man is also very good at playing. Looking at his appearance, he must have obtained the land deed early. After all, he is a great speaker. How noble his status is. A piece of land without any security. Would it be difficult for him to give it to Tang Mao? The reason why it has been delayed until now should be waiting to maximize its benefits, right? No matter whether Xiao Zheng is a good man or not, the interests of this world are extremely important after all. And Tang Mao didn't care at all. In fact, at the beginning, he just said it casually. He really didn't expect that Xiao Zheng would send someone to do this. Great speaker, are you bribing me? Although Tang Mao doesn't like politicians, he is now at least a top boss in the open. A person of this level is willing to give himself this gift. Can his purpose be pure? Xiao Zheng did not blame him, but smiled and said, I just want to give you some encouragement, and this Phenio city has almost given up. It's nothing to give you. You said it so openly. Aren't you afraid that I will report you? Tang Mao took the deed. Xiao Zheng was upset. Don't worry, I was just joking with you. If you offend me, you will be wronged in the future, won't you die? Chapter 378, that Sundeerhoof comes. Xiao Zheng was really speechless when he met Tang Mao. He had never seen such a straightforward person. Don't worry, speaker, it's just a small Egypt. It's not like I haven't stepped on them before. The undead tactics are useless to me. After hearing Tang Mao's words, Xiao Zheng was relieved. However, when he thought about the undead all over the ground, if he really wanted to deal with them, he was afraid that this kid would have to use forbidden techniques again. That's right, the demon system is a forbidden technique in the international community. Even if Tang Mao has already controlled it, it is still a forbidden technique. As long as it is used, it will definitely lead to a tragedy. Tang Mao, just do your best. It's good enough to be able to fight until now. The demon system must not be used in the national government competition. Otherwise, even if China wins, you will cause trouble in the future. Even we old guys may not be able to protect you. Although Xiaozeng also wanted the national government players to win the championship. Moreover, when he defeated Britain, he felt that at worst they could be the runner-up this time. But, who would have thought that the Egyptians and Ed army would be so coquettish? It can even be said that they almost violated the rules. But the undead system is also a magic system, and there are no restrictions, so this violation is naturally not considered. Tang Mao just nodded, but didn't say anything more. Xiaozeng originally thought that Tang Mao would say a few words to calm him down, but he didn't expect that after nodding, there was no response? Question mark? It's outrageous. However, he has given what he should give, and said what he should say. Now he can only hope that Tang Mao will do his best. Of course, Xiaozeng naturally went to visit the other team members one by one. After all, this is not a personal show. He was able to show off in the last game, which can only be said to be more abnormal. But Egypt is different from Britain. As soon as they go online, they are absolutely defensive. The defense of one person may not be a big deal, but the defense of a team is different. In the previous few games, they used various defensive skills to resist the hard bombardment of other national teams. Then, they seized the gap and there was an army of undead. But even if tonight is destined to be a sleepless night, all he can do now is wait. Or, Fengli will give him a perfect plan. Just when Xiaozeng was about to go back, he suddenly paused and looked at Tang Mao's residence. After staring for a while, Xiaozeng muttered, "This kid, doesn't he know the importance of tomorrow's game?" At this time, in Tang Mao's room, Mochizuki Chiksen, wearing a black tights, sat on the bed, looking at Tang Mao with a wronged face. "Mochizuki Chiksen, I know you covet your father's handsome face, but you don't have to come here in the middle of the night, right? Besides, this is the residence of our Huaxia government. Aren't you afraid of being discovered?" Although he wanted to reprimand this asterisk for his increasingly disobedient performance. However, it was originally a tights, and now it is even more bulging. He really has no temper. This arrogant oof is really accurate for him. However, he still insisted on a calm and unmoved look. "You scumbag, why don't you just die?" Mochizuki Chiksen was instantly unhappy. This damn man hadn't come to see her for a few days. Now that he came to see her, she was still pretending to be with him. After cursing, Mochizuki Chiksen was about to turn around and leave. She seemed to be angry. Not to mention, when he saw that this arrogant oof was angry, he really felt that he had done something wrong. Tang Mao still didn't think he had done anything wrong. Wasn't it just a little bit of a smugness? But he was still afraid that he might not hear the beautiful Yamadi in the future. As a man who likes languages from all over the world, how could he allow a young lady who could learn from each other to break off contact like this? Don't be angry, I'm kidding you. Tang Mao paused, and then he pulled Mochizuki Chiksen in front of the window. "Let me go," Mochizuki Chiksen said angrily without looking at Tang Mao. "No. At this time, you have to be a rogue. If you really let go, you'll be stupid. I came here just to see you. But you should understand that I'm not unwanted." Although Mochizuki Chiksen was somewhat subdued by the kiss, her tsundere nature was in her bones. She had a temper that could not be coaxed without any response. Seeing that soft words were useless, Tang Mao glared at her and raised his voice slightly. "I didn't scold you. Why are you so angry? If you are fierce, I will throw you out." "You." Tang Mao didn't know what she was thinking at this time. But her body turned around subconsciously, and her full breasts were directly pressed against Tang Mao's chest. Although this touch was not the first time he felt it, but every time, it made his heart beat extremely. Before Mochizuki Chiksen could argue, Tang Mao took the lead. Mochizuki Chiksen, whose little tongue was captured, really had no temper at all. 3. Why after the 3-minute kiss, Mochizuki Chiksen's ups and downs of emotions finally calmed down. Sniffing her scent, Tang Mao said very gently, "I just feel sorry for you, and I don't mean anything else." She was unhappy with this guy's arrogance. However, for this rare gentleness, the little arrogant oof, there is really zero resistance HMPH. And then Mochizuki Chiksen said again, "You scum, you haven't come to me for a few days? Have you forgotten me?" Just now, she felt that, if you didn't chase me, men would line up abroad, but now, As expected, women are fickle creatures. I'm not in the competition. I have to meditate well. How can I have time to find you? Tang Mao said cunningly. He can't say that he has been a little weak recently, right? You fart. Mochizuki Chixon didn't give her face at all and cursed without the goddess style and then said, you went to find that little hoof in the UK the night after the celebration banquet. Do you think I don't know? No, Mochizuki Chixon, when did you learn to follow me? Tang Mao was a little confused. This woman has always been pretending to be dead. If he ignores her, how come he has changed so much after coming to Venice? This is not the way a jerk should think. So and so followed you. I just happened to see him. She would not admit it. Otherwise, this guy would see how much she cares about him. What kind of attitude is this? If she admits it again, she will probably ignore this bastard. She was unwilling to accept it before, but since she spent money to help Tang Mao, her nature has completely changed. She doesn't need anything, so why would she be willing to be a jerk? Chapter 379, Battle Against Egypt. Such words are false, even if you think with your ass. However, he did not continue to talk about this. It was already late at night, and the fire in his heart kept burning. Tang Mao felt that it was necessary to relax a little. Mochizuki Chixon was still waiting for Tang Mao's next words, and even the words for explanation had been organized. But she was already empty. Mochizuki Chixon wanted to be reserved, but Tang Mao did not give her this opportunity at all. Moreover, she herself did not have the patience. In the end, everything went so smoothly. Originally, Tang Mao just wanted to have a taste. After all, he had to compete tomorrow. But as a man whose lower body occasionally thinks more than his brain, he was typically not satisfied. The next day, the third round of the game began. The winner today will directly have a bye for the next game. Directly compete with the last winning country in the finals. In the player preparation area, Feng Li thought for a long time before calling out names. Ai Jiangtu, Muningsu, Zhao Manian, Guanyu, and Mos1. Tang Mao, you should start the game as well. He originally wanted Tang Mao to stay and wait for the substitute, but when he thought of the undead everywhere, waiting for the substitute to go up didn't seem to be very effective, so it was better to go up and play directly. If you can fight, then fight. If you can't fight, then give up. Of course, he originally wanted Jiang Shaoxu to play, but Jiang Shaoxu was not as good as Zhao Manian, the meat shield, and Guanyu was naturally to let him play his assassination advantage. If an assassin type mage can assassinate successfully, it will also have a great effect. When the Chinese team went on the field, the Egyptian team had already gone on the field. They were not as arrogant as imagined, but were fully prepared. If you don't know them, you would really think they are a team that is used to keeping a low profile. Of course, the fact is not the case. They just have a profound impact on Tang Mao. After all, the few Egyptian scums in the Chinese pavilion left a deep memory, especially Said, who was beaten casually by Tang Mao before, and Mars. They were afraid and hated Tang Mao, almost gritting their teeth. What they feared was his terrifying magic destructive power. After defeating Zheluo, he was already the first in the real sense. Mars's anger was naturally noticed by the Egyptian players. Nefru reminded, don't be impulsive. Our opponent is not just Tang Mao. Proceed as planned. I know. Although Mars was a little unhappy, she still endured it. The first thing to deal with now is his teammates. As long as Tang Mao's teammates are beaten down, and only Tang Mao is left, then the 5 of them will work together to surround thousands of undead. Even if he is strong, what's the use? Game. Start. Just after both teams were online, the referee shouted loudly. The moment the referee's voice came out, the 5 Egyptians had finished chanting the spell. Obviously, they had already started when they were preparing. Unfortunately, their behavior was not considered illegal because they did not make a move. Grey light flickered, and then several people dripped a drop of blood. Immediately, black and red undead emerged from the ground. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of undead appeared. However, Tang Mao did not rush to take action. After all, if he took too much action, what if they surrendered directly? You know, he was waiting to brush the spirit, to strengthen his star level. As for the others, they did not take action. This was what Tang Mao had explained right at the beginning, of course, except for Guan Yu, who could choose to take action at any time. Assassin-type mages, what they have to do is sneak attack and assassinate. However, he did not think that Guan Yu could succeed in the sneak attack. Although his Horcrux is very powerful, the Egyptians can hold on until now, and they still have no defense. AI Jiang Tu asked in confusion, "Are you sure we don't take action? We can solve some of them first, but don't be too fierce." Tang Mao nodded and responded. In fact, to solve some of them now, Tang Mao only needs to collect the residual souls and essence souls. As for Pharaoh Yuan, there is no rush. As long as Egypt is given some time, they will naturally summon more undead. And these are a large amount of income for him. Zhao Manan is responsible for causing trouble for the undead below, such as building some mounds and hills. Muningsu and Ai Jiang Tu killed nearly a dozen undead with one move. Tang Mao also took action naturally, because he had seen that Egypt was exerting its strength. These undead who didn't care about their lives rushed to die like moths to a flame. After solving the first round of undead, a new wave of undead army came again. Moreover, there were several mid-level undead in this undead army. The moment an undead as big as a tall building came to kill him, Tang Mao also took action. A space condensation killed it instantly. Now among his attack magic, space magic power is naturally the strongest. Of course, space magic is not suitable for dealing with large numbers of undead. It is the most powerful and terrifying when fighting alone. If you want to deal with a large group like this, elemental magic is more suitable. Before a batch of undead were killed, Egypt summoned new undead, and Guan Yu's side was not smooth. His assassination was almost useless, just as Tang Mao expected. The opponent worked together to set up a defensive barrier of magic tools, and magic power. With Guan Yu's strength, he naturally couldn't get in. And the Egyptians ignored Guan Yu directly. They began to command the endless undead to kill Tang Mao and his men. Their tactics were very simple, that is, to consume Tang Mao and his men's magic power. With the relationship of the pharaoh's source, their consumption was not great. "Tang Mao, are you going to do it?" Ai Jiang Tu asked somewhat unbearably. Although he was the captain of the Guofu team, he had no way to deal with these undead. So, he could only listen to Tang Mao's command. After all, Tang Mao himself said that the final solution to the undead was up to him. No matter how many there are. After everyone took on the next wave, Tang Mao was replaced by Guan Yu. At this moment, all kinds of magical powers were already spread. No matter how many mummies there were, Tang Mao could be said to have been able to quickly clear the field. But even so, it was still a little short. So after hearing Ai Jiang Tu's question, he responded, "Not enough. 9 Hold on for a while." Chapter 380 Action. These undead simply couldn't withstand Tang Mao's thunder bombardment, especially since he had accumulated the thunder element for a while. If he deployed his domain, it would be gone in an instant. So, he could only continue to endure. At the beginning, Tang Mao said that there was a way to deal with the undead, and they would be responsible for delaying them once they came on the field. Of course, they had to resist. For example, in Muningsu's domain of ice and wind, the slave level undead disappeared in the blink of an eye. The Egyptians had actually discovered that Tang Mao didn't attack much, but they just thought that Tang Mao just wanted to rush over and deal with them directly. Try harder, don't let him get close. Humph, what are you afraid of? Our undead tactics won't give him any chance to rush over. Myers said to someone who didn't know who reminded him, not caring at all. At this moment, there were nearly 1,000 undeads. Among them, there were nearly 100 war generals, and they were still summoning them continuously. Although this fighting field is not small, if they are given a few more minutes, they may be able to summon all the undead here. Sayed looked at the nearby army of undead and suggested, "I think these are not enough. How about we work together to summon a few big ones?" Although Myers was very disdainful of Tang Mao, he also had a deep recognition of his strength. Therefore, she nodded and agreed to Sayed's proposal without thinking. After Myers finished speaking, several people also cooperated very well. For the remaining pharaoh's source, they did not continue to summon slave level undead to consume them, but directly summoned stronger undead. Of course, stronger undead will naturally not be at the level of war generals, but at the level of commanders. The reason why the Egyptians did not object was not just blind self-confidence. Even if the summoned commander level undead was defeated, they could still absorb them back and continue to summon. It can be said that as long as there are no external plugins, their tactics have made them undefeated. No matter who it is, they can't beat them. Because the Pharaoh's fountain can be recycled, one drop of blood is enough to awaken more than 20 slave level undead. This is why Tang Mao defeated Zheluo head on, and they dared to fight. The magic consumption of the undead they summoned is not large, and it can even be said that it is not as large as a simple primary magic. They are all high level mages, and a primary magic is almost zero consumption. In this case, all they have to do is consume, and other than defense, they don't need any powerful offensive means. Tang Mao, they seem to be holding back some big moves. Still waiting? AI Jiang looked at the endless undead and the powerful magic aura coming from the other side, and said anxiously. To be honest, he actually wanted to try to break through, and try to see if he could beat a few Egyptians in one wave. He is a space mage, and it is not difficult to get close to him. Of course, AI Jiang also knows that it is easy to get close, but the defense of the Egyptian players is not easy to break. The other party seemed to have no offensive magic tools, and all they had were defense. Tang Mao, do you have any countermeasures? If we continue to waste time like this, it will not do us any good. Zhao Manan looked at the dense mass of undead in front of him, and his scalp tingled. He was not Tang Mao, who had experienced the catastrophe of the ancient capital, and witnessed millions of undead. Not to mention Zhao Manan, even Muningsu was a little overwhelmed. Although her domain could kill undead in seconds, the undead summoned by the other party at this moment were no longer slave level undead. They were war general level, and even two of them had begun to summon commander level monsters. Yike. After some war general level undead appeared, two thick centipede bone monsters with black bodies and cursed auras crawled out of the soil, and then each of them let out a long strange cry. The two skeleton centipede monsters were 15 or 16 meters long, with a completely cone-shaped tail, and a bone man-shaped neck and head. There were two huge human skulls on them, and their four pupils were deadly and murderous. They were completely like ghosts crawling out of hell, and they were incompatible with the living things in this world. When Tang Mao saw these two commander level undead and hundreds of general level undead, his eyes lit up instantly. No need to be low-key anymore, let's do it. Although Tang Mao was very interested in these spirits, he was more interested in the Pharaoh's source. This is a good thing. Killing does not need to absorb any energy other than totems. What it absorbs will be transformed into energy to be poured into its body. Tang Mao estimated that the energy exchanged by the Pharaoh's source might allow his thunder system or ice system to directly break through the realm of high level perfection. There are many spirits and residual spirits in the demon zone, but there are not many treasures like the Pharaoh's source. It's not that he didn't think about killing monsters first, but Tang Mao also considered it. If he showed too much strength and only absorbed the residual soul and essence, but not the Pharaoh's source, or absorbed some and was discovered, and the opponent gave up, then it would be a big loss. And now, with this Linoop, I think all the Pharaoh's sources in Egypt have been used up. If we don't take action now, when will we wait? As Tang Mao finished speaking, several guys who had been holding their breath for a long time started to take action without question. They didn't care about what would happen next now. They were all angry and needed a place to vent. For a while, high-level constellations kept flashing. Even Zhao Manan had already used light bombardment. Muningsu consumed most of it because of the continuous field. But she still had no intention of holding back, and the ice crystal bow in her hand emerged. After pulling the arrow to the full, whoosh sounded, and it was shot out. The power of this arrow directly froze half of the undead on the field, as well as the trees and grass of the residual souls, into ice sculptures. The servant level undead turned into debris in the blink of an eye. Purple sky domain. As ice sculptures formed all over the ground, Tang Mao jumped up to a high place. Then the domain was directly expanded. Boom boom. Originally, the sky was clear, but at the moment when Tang Mao opened the domain, dark clouds came in an instant. For a moment, the sky was dark and the earth was gloomy. Originally, everyone was still worried about the safety of the Huax national government team, However, when the first wave of thunder fell, electric chains on the ground floated up and finally formed a huge electric grid. Thunder. Electric chain. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 381 Victory. Normally, when Tang Mao opened his domain, it was naturally not this powerful. The reason why the world was eclipsed today was because he had been accumulating power for a long time. He did not do nothing just now. He had been constantly condensing the lightning element and then buried it here. After such a long time, it naturally accumulated more and more. This explosion was completely like a wave of king bombs. The power grid floated up from the ground. The entire arena was just full of undead, but at the moment when Muningsu and Tang Mao each took action, they were directly transformed into residual souls, spirits, and more of the Pharaoh's source. Then, they were constantly absorbed into the Kilin Jade. As for those residual souls and spirits, Tang Mao and Kilin chose to absorb the Pharaoh's source first. Oh no, that guy is stealing our Pharaoh's fountain. Said screamed. Not only Said noticed it, but also several other Egyptian players noticed it immediately after Tang Mao solved a group of undead. After all, he and his teammates wiped out thousands of undead in the field in one fell swoop, and the Pharaoh's source was constantly absorbed. If they hadn't reacted yet, how could they have been in trouble until now? Without the Pharaoh's source, they simply couldn't summon such a large number of undead. Even if they could use the undead system, their magic power was limited, and their strength was not strong. If they hadn't cheated, let alone playing until now, I'm afraid they might not be able to hold on in the knockout rounds. How could he know? It's impossible. Even the super-class magician can't see it? Myers said in shock. You know, the Pharaoh's source is not visible to the naked eye. It can't be detected without some special means. This is one of the reasons why they can use it until now without violating the rules. After discovering this, several Egyptian players wanted to summon back the to commander level undead. Unfortunately, Tang Mao didn't give them a chance at all. You deal with the to commander level undeads, I'll deal with the 5 of them. As soon as Tang Mao finished speaking, lightning flashed in his hand, and the silent thunder and death light blasted out directly. Seeing Tang Mao coming towards them, how could the Egyptian team members hesitate? They immediately used magic weapons and magic tools to resist. They all knew how terrifying Tang Mao's lethality was. Boom, boom, boom. One by one, defensive magic weapons and magic tools, and the magic armor worn by each of them appeared, and the lightning also approached directly. Boom. Boom, boom. When the silent thunder and death light touched the Egyptian team's defensive magic weapons, it instantly began to explode. In addition, within the field, the power continued to double. However, Egypt's defense is obviously good. In such a thunder bombardment, it has not been broken. Giant thunderstorm. But before they could rejoice, they saw Tang Mao's palm condensed. Strands of thunder continued to condense in front of the defense. After Tang Mao's voice came out, the thunder gathered instantly. With a boom sound, the 5 Egyptian players broke through the defense at the same time, and were blown away. Almost all the Egyptian players who fell to the ground fainted. Only Nefru was still making a final stubborn effort. No, we give up. When he saw that AI Jiangtu and his team were about to deal with those undead leaders, he felt so heartbroken that he was about to bleed. He even regretted why he had to use up all the remaining Pharaoh's source. You know, as long as there is a little, it will be the biggest help for them. AI Jiangtu and his team naturally didn't care about Nefru's words. They were just venting their anger at this time. Especially after seeing that the undead tactics were broken, they bombarded without reservation. Although the consumption of magic energy will be very large, after this game is over, they will have a buy in the next round. When the last round starts, can they still recover? Moreover, these undead leaders may be difficult for others to deal with. However, the members of the national government who can become a powerful country are all geniuses picked from thousands of miles away. In addition to the power background behind them, that person doesn't have a soul seed to match. It is not difficult to deal with a few leading undead. especially after Tang Mao defeated the 5 Egyptians. He did not continue to fight, but joined Ai Jiangtu and his men on the battlefield. After seeing this scene, Nafilu fainted with anger, but even if he knew that the other party had robbed their pharaoh's source, he dared not speak out. After all, if the governor of Venice knew about this, the price they would pay would be extremely heavy, and even their lives would be over. Because of this, what else could he do except faint with anger? After solving the last undead, Tang Mao collected a full amount of pharaoh's source. At this time, the opponent's substitute came up and had no intention of fighting anymore and surrendered decisively. In the audience, people from all countries saw that the unresistance tactics of the undead were cracked in such a strange way. Although there were some mysteries, they just subconsciously thought that it was because Tang Mao had knocked out the Egyptian players. Sure enough, although the tactics of the undead are powerful, their own strength is not enough. They can't stand in front of Tang Mao's magic of destruction. They are still helpless. When it comes to magic of destruction, it has to be this guy Huazar. This is a magic of destruction that even defensive magic weapons can't resist. For a while, everyone was talking about it, and in the front row of Huazar, several big men were crying with joy. Especially Fengli, who had been frowning all the time, and Xiaozeng, who had been nervous all the time, almost jumped up with excitement when they witnessed the final victory. For Fengli, the students he led had avenged their previous shame and guaranteed the second place. And for Xiaozeng, the rewards for winning this game were too many. The resources allocated by Huazai this year are almost dozens of times that of previous years. What does this mean? It means that after the end of the national government competition, Huazai's strength will be greatly improved. And Muningsu, Zhao Manayan, Ai Jiangtu and Guan Yu on the field also benefited from it. It can be said that he became famous in one battle. Especially Muningsu, with this performance, she can completely prove to the Chinese people that she is not a traitor to the country. She has nothing to do with her uncle who has ties to the Black Church. She, Muningsu, is willing to make the greatest contribution to her motherland. She has made a real contribution. From the beginning to the end of this game, the one who consumed the most energy was naturally Muningsu. After all, she opened the dual domains at the beginning. Chapter 382, Thunder System Perfection. When he left the court, Tang Mao could still feel the murderous aura coming from behind. He was not surprised by this. They had taken away the complete pharaoh's source, and they still had to suffer. It would be strange if they had no reaction. However, without these endless undead, how could they compete with him? No way. They would not be able to stand up at all. If there were really stupid people who were hopelessly looking for death, he could be sure that he would not have any mercy. The first 3 rounds of the game had ended, and the next one was the last one. As for the 4th round of competition, it had nothing to do with him. After several people left the court, Xiaozeng personally led everyone to a celebration banquet. Although he had not won the championship completely, he was very confident now. China must win. After all, whether it was Britain or Greece, or the Egyptian team that was kicked out, the most likely teams for them to win were Britain and Egypt. As for the others, perhaps only Egypt could qualify, but no matter which country won the final victory, except Greece, they were all defeated. Since we can win once, why can't we win the second time? Although they have never played against Greece, they are afraid that even Britain will find it difficult to win, so there is nothing to panic. This night, without any surprise, Tang Mao was drunk again. He did not go to visit the next game. The energy of the pharaoh's source is too strong. Tang Mao is ready to retreat. For him, no matter which country the opponent is, the so-called genius is actually a group of little brats. In the high level, whoever is beaten is not the father beating the son. In the Killing Jade, the majestic energy Tang Mao filled the galaxy of the Thunder System. At present, the Thunder System and the Ice System have the highest cultivation, and both have reached the 2nd level. However, the Magic System with the strongest output is still the Thunder System. Even if the Ice System has the Snow Girl, there is still a gap compared with the current output of the Thunder System. Although not much, the Ice System needs to combine with the Snow Girl to achieve it. The Thunder System is different. It does not need the fusion of any elves, just relying on its strength. Moreover, since the purple sky divine thunder can devour the tyrant wild thunder, perhaps it means that it can also devour other thunder type souls. Of course, Tangmao has tested some ordinary thunder type souls, but unfortunately the purple sky divine thunder did not react at all. This little thing is quite picky. When this energy poured in, strands of electric wires burst out in Tangmao's room. On the other side, the fourth round of the competition has also begun. It is worth mentioning that in this fourth round of competition, it is not Britain that performs outstandingly, it is Greece. Originally, the Greek government was very powerful this year, but who knew that they would have a new student at this time? Although she was wearing a black silk veil, it can be felt that she is a beautiful woman just by guessing. Originally, the audience thought she was good looking but useless, but who knew that her strength was so terrible? Before, the American team met Greece, although they also lost, but it was not so bleak. And this time, they were almost completely crushed. One hand of space magic can be said to be shocking. When it came to the three-way battle, Egypt suddenly chose to surrender. The top three had no intention of competing, and they firmly landed in fourth place. For this situation, Venice only thought that they were defeated by Tangmao, so they had no intention of continuing to fight. There was nothing to care about. With the surrender of Egypt, the original three-way battle finally turned into a one-on-one battle between Britain and Greece. Everyone is very optimistic about Britain, although Asheruia, the adopted daughter of the Son of God, is very respected. But in terms of strength, Zelo is still deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. But it was this Zelo who was defeated again in the final battle for the top three. Asheruia of Greece also showed powerful magical power. Even the power she used can be said to be beyond the level. It can be said that it even reached the power of a superclass mage. Naturally, some people expressed dissatisfaction with this, but previously, the undead tactics used by Egypt were not sanctioned. What can the governor of Venice do to ban the dark power possessed by the saint herself? This can be regarded as Asheruia's control over the shadow system, but it is not some other forbidden technique. At least, even if you want to stop these, you have to wait until the next session. Tangmao can be said to be completely unaware of these things. At this time, he has already broken through the barrier of the second level high level thunder system. Successfully reached the realm of the third level high level. The third level high level. The magic explosive power of the thunder system has been greatly improved. The control power is even more arbitrary. The speed of the thunder system constellation is also much faster. When he came out of seclusion, it was already the last 2 days before the final championship and runner-up competition. Where are you all frowning and doing what? When he came to the living room, he saw that the joy of the celebration banquet that day had disappeared without a trace, so he asked curiously, "Damn it, Tangmao, you finally came out. You don't know that we have encountered a strong enemy." When Zeomanan saw Tangmao, he immediately responded, "A beautiful female mage came from Greece." Tangmao didn't even think about it, and said, "Isn't her name Asheruia? HMM. Backquote. As soon as these words came out, several eyes swish looked over. The fastest sources of these eyes were Jiang Sheogsu, Mu Nigio and Mu Tingying. He could understand the first two, but he was a little puzzled that Mu Tingying, the little bitch, also looked over at the first time, and she was even faster than Mu Ningsu. The two of them didn't have any substantial relationship, at most they just looked at her. Why is this stupid woman joining in the fun? After cursing in his heart, Tangmao said, "Why are you all looking at me? The only person of the same age, and with outstanding strength in Greece is, I think, the saint of the Parthenon." Jiang Sheogsu looked at Tangmao suspiciously. "You seem to be very familiar with the new woman in Greece." Inexplicably, Jiang Sheogsu felt a sense of crisis. There was nothing he could do. Asheruia's charm and seductiveness were almost completely superior to hers, except that her breasts were not as nice as hers. But, hers were bigger. This was also a fatal flaw for Fatima, and this was the main reason why she reacted so strongly. P.S. I have been running around the hospital all day today. The second chapter will be updated tomorrow during the day. I can't bear it any longer. Chapter 383 Finals Opening. I know her. Tangmao didn't lie. He nodded and admitted it. The key is that he couldn't deny it. He refused to admit it at this time, which only showed that he had something to hide. Then Tang Mao explained, when the ancient capital was in disaster, we teamed up to look for people together. Yes, I told you that I know that slutty fox. Why don't you believe it? Mo Fan suddenly spoke at this time. Before, he said that he knew this woman, but no one believed it. Xiao Zheng said, then are you sure you can deal with her? Or do you know her strength? I don't know her strength, but this slutty fox has a lot of high-level magic weapons and magic tools. Everyone said that Zhao Manan was a rich man, but the equipment on him was far different from that of Ashiruaya. Although Zhao Manan had a lot of high-level magic tools, the only thing that could withstand one of hers was probably Beizai's wooden fish. Of course, there was another one sponsored by his father, but Zhao Manan, a fool, didn't know how powerful it was. Tang Mao didn't remind him of anything. After all, he had never seen this dog day thing taken out. If he said so, he would have to explain it in great detail. He was not interested in such a headache. Xiao Zheng's mouth twitched slightly. He was very dissatisfied with Tang Mao's answer. Feng Li, the chief instructor of the national government, said at this time, everyone should do their best. Don't have too much psychological burden. No matter what, you have done a good job. After the chief instructor said this, the other big guys had to shut up, even if they wanted to say something. After a small episode, Feng Li and several other instructors went to discuss the list of players for the competition 2 days later. Jiang Xiaoxu directly took Tang Mao to go shopping. Although Tang Mao preferred to meditate, she lacked some sense of security today. She was very clingy, so he had no choice but to follow her. Although Venice is beautiful, it feels a bit boring to go shopping. It's almost all water here. Although he is not afraid of water, he doesn't like water either. Fortunately, Jiang Xiaoxu's intention was not to drink, and she didn't come to go shopping. She just wanted Tang Mao to accompany her more. The two of them walked around until they arrived at the hotel. After many days of meditation and cultivation, Tang Mao gave her all his love without hesitation. 4 o'clock in the morning. Do you want to die together? Tang Mao looked at Jiang Xiaoxu with sweat all over his forehead and said with some fear, this woman's eyelids have been fighting for a long time, and she looks like she will faint at any time. Since she is still ready to come? Question mark. I still want it. There are already some bloodshot in Jiang Xiaoxu's fox eyes, but she still looks like I want it. This is outrageous. Jiang Fox, what's wrong with you tonight? Look at what you are like. Don't you know how to feel sorry for yourself? Tang Mao reproached very seriously, thinking silently in his heart, you don't feel sorry for yourself. Don't you know how to feel sorry for me? Question mark. After this night, can he still live? Seeing that she was silent and looked like she could do something without talking, he hurriedly stopped her and said, Sister, Ashiruaya and I really don't have any relationship beyond friendship. It's been a whole night. If he didn't know what gave her motivation, then he wouldn't have to continue to be a slut. It's just that he didn't mean to explain at the beginning. He was always thinking about the next time, but this slut was like taking stimulants tonight, showing all kinds of martial arts to the fullest. He couldn't control his thoughts at all. Until now, when he didn't want to move at all, he was doing a split. Any normal man couldn't stand it. But being powerless is also a thing. Jiang Xiaoxu heard this and hummed weakly, and then said, you didn't lie to me. If I lied to you, I'd be a dog. Now there was nothing between him and Ashiruaya. Even if there was, it was just the anger of that slut. As for the future, that's all in the future. How can he say for sure? Jiang Xiaoxu has known Tang Mao for a long time. He seems to have a good reason and no lies, but he feels that this bastard is just fooling him. You have been a dog for more than once or twice. This is really hard to answer. No matter how you say it, it seems to be wrong. Question mark. Although it is unreliable, I'm still willing to believe you, Jiang Xiaoxu said, pinching Tang Mao's soft spot. He smiled charmingly and said, but if I find anything that day, I will break it off immediately. It was such a charming smile, but Tang Mao looked so creepy. After saying that, Jiang Xiaoxu seemed to be unable to hold on. He relaxed his hands and fell asleep on the bed. She slept soundly, but Tang Mao, who was just frightened, was so confused that he didn't feel sleepy at all. Fortunately, he has a demon system, and his physique is excellent in all aspects. It's okay not to sleep, but the numbness in my waist will be hard to recover in 3 to 5 days. The finals, after the 3-way battle, finally opened on the Venice Battle Island a few days later. For this grand event, Venice deliberately arranged the battlefield on an island completely surrounded by seawater. The entire island looked like a fighting platform floating in the blue sea water from a distance. The deep blue sea water barrier formed a transparent light wall, protecting the entire island fighting platform. The audience seats were transformed into ships. There were 4 luxury ships in total, located in the 4 directions of the entire water fighting platform. Through the barrier, they could clearly see the situation in the entire island fighting platform. Compared with being in the audience seats, it felt like a huge change. At the same time, fireworks rang out from Venice City one after another, forming a gorgeous bridge of fireworks in the sky, slowly extending to the ocean, and slowly extending to the island fighting platform. The Greek players have already appeared on the island. The leader was the coquettish and charming Ashiruaya. Tang Mao was not in the starting lineup for China, but Ai Jiangtu led the team. In addition, there were Nanju Emofan, Jiang Shaoxu and Zhao Manan. Although Muningxu had recovered, China was not without other fighting forces. Feng Li couldn't just let Tang Mao and Muningxu take the spotlight, right? Moreover, for the weird Ashiruaya, he also wanted to let Ai Jiangtu and others consume her first. However, if she really used the power of the Dark Cross level, what could she consume? Chapter 384 Final. After the call of match start, Zhao Manan started to build a wild castle for defense. Nanju began to listen to the opponent's movements, while Emofan was responsible for drawing the constellations, preparing to bombard them directly. The moment the lightning constellation condensed, Ai Jiangtu suddenly came to his side, and then a burst of silver light emerged, and the next moment the two appeared dozens of meters away. Silent Thunder Deathlight. After Emofan was brought here, he immediately threw the high-level lightning in his hand. Ashiruaya and others really didn't expect that the two could cooperate so well. Water Flower Sky Curtain. However, their team members did not stand and take the beating. At the moment, when the lightning came down, a water defense was perfectly displayed. Similarly, a team member used a defensive magic weapon for the light defense magic. Boom. The lightning exploded, and the light flashed. But it seemed to be a little useless. Although he already had a lightning soul seed, the opponent was not a loser. The most important thing was that the Greek team had the ability to bless. With the strong defense of the water defense and the cooperation of the magic weapon, his lightning naturally could not cause any substantial damage. Emofan saw this, but he was not surprised at all, nor did he feel unbelievable. Instead, he grinned and said, "That's how it should be, it's interesting." Thunderstorm. Bang bang bang. As he continued to describe, the thunder that had originally dispersed suddenly reappeared. Boom 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 boom. Moreover, the thunder was even more powerful than before. More destructive. Seeing this, Carlos, who was standing at the front, paused slightly, looked at the Greek players behind him and reminded everyone, be careful. Boom. Although she reminded in time, the thunderstorm was also extremely fast. The moment she finished speaking, there was a huge explosion of lightning near the 5 Greek players. Skyflame Funeral. Hellfire. When the thunderstorm ended, and the Greek players were still unknown whether they were alive or dead, Emofan continued to attack. Ai Jiangtu wanted to speak up to stop it. After all, if he killed someone, he would be disqualified. But Emofan could feel that his bombing was resisted. Dark Knight Prison. At this moment, a black barrier suddenly appeared above Ai Jiangtu and Emofan, enveloping them. Not good. Ai Jiangtu said inwardly as he watched the two trapped in the dark space. Emofan was also a little puzzled. He had just launched 2 waves of bombing, but the other party still had the power to fight back. At this time, the elemental power emitted by the area of thunder and fire had slowly dissipated. The figures of the 5 Greeks also reappeared in the eyes of the audience. However, they did not seem to be as strong as imagined. Except for Ashiruaya, almost everyone was wearing magic tools, and they were also damaged. And the one who attacked in this bombing was naturally Ashiruaya. After she controlled AI Jiang Tu and Mo-fan with the power of shadow, she ordered the team members, I will hold them back, and you go and deal with the remaining 3. Gamenon and others nodded and rushed to where Zhao Manan and others were. When Gamenon and the others came to kill, Nanju and Jiang Shaoxu had already taken action. However, Greece also had a mind magician. Jiang Shaoxu was restrained. Although Zhao Manan's defense withstood the bombardment of elemental magic, it was extremely ineffective against Gamenon's poison. Among the 3, only Nanju still had the strength to fight. Although the number of sound attacks was limited, the power should not be underestimated. However, the Greek Gamenon's poison was brewing, and the 3 of them soon fell into a passive position. Even Zhao Manan had already used magic weapons, but no one could see that the Chinese government was at a disadvantage. On the luxury cruise ship outside the field, Han Ji frowned and said, I said that Tang Mao should start the game. Now it's good, right? He is directly at a disadvantage. If they all lose, even if that boy is strong, he has to deal with the Greek female student and the entire Greek team. I'm afraid. Alas, Feng Li did not say anything about this. He just watched quietly. Pang Lei responded to Han Ji. Old Han, just watch quietly. Feng Li has his reasons for making such an arrangement. At the place where the substitutes were, Muting Ying looked at the 3 people who were bombed there, curled her lips and said, I really don't know what the instructor is thinking. Facing the other party's poison system, there is no way to fight. The few of them were really helpless in the defense of the poison system. And knowing that there was a master of poison in Greece, she didn't understand why such a Linoop was still online. Not only him, but also the other people present were full of puzzlement. This is the real key game. Although the first and second place are only 1 place apart. However, the difference in this 1 place, the things that are obtained, whether it is individuals or countries, are a world of difference. It's over. After working so hard for so long, repelling Egypt, in the end, it fell into the hands of Greece. Jiang Yu was also full of puzzlement, and then looked at Tang Mao. Seeing that he didn't react much, he asked in confusion, if they all lose, we will be 3-8. Brother, do you have the confidence to deal with an opponent with a strength that crosses a level and a team of people? No. Tang Mao shook his head and denied it directly. If he was the only one left, he really had no confidence in this unfathomable foxhoof and the Greek elites. After all, this coquettish hoof was also unfathomable. One-on-one, maybe it's okay, but if there are other people harassing, it's almost impossible. Unless he also uses forbidden techniques, it's natural to crush them in the demonized state. However, he can't use the demon system at all. Although the reward for the first place is very tempting. No. Are you still so calm? Jiang Yu felt that he was stupid. For the reward for the first place, I think anyone would be very tempted. After all, that is to increase the power of one's own magic. Just watch quietly, it's not the end yet. Tang Mao still said very calmly. Although he was not sure to deal with it, it didn't mean that he really lost. Although his presence overshadowed many people, it didn't mean that they would be useless without him. Feng Li didn't let him start for other reasons, because he didn't want him to be too prominent. In fact, Feng Li was quite panicked at this time, and he was afraid that things would get out of control. Chapter 385 Finals, Part 2. At this time, Nanju and the others were in danger. Although they resisted a little, they would be thrown down soon if they continued like this. Gamenon was already laughing wildly with excitement. He seemed to see the hope of victory. Looking at the 3 people who were struggling there, he said with a playful look on his face, don't resist in vain. If you continue like this, I can't guarantee that something terrible will happen. Zhao Manan was extremely unhappy with Gamenon's look of winning, and said, scum, if you have the ability, break through our defense and poison us, so that we can't take care of ourselves. Humph, since you want to experience the life of lying in bed, don't blame me for being rude. Gamenon's face turned black, and he said coldly, you should think about your life lying in bed. Just as Gamenon finished speaking, a voice suddenly came from behind. Gamenon, be careful behind you. Be careful. At the same time, his teammates Carlos and others also reminded him. And the moment Gamenon turned around, he saw that Mo-fan, who had just been controlled, appeared behind him without knowing when. Question mark? Fiery fist. Flame dragon. Emofan didn't waste his words with him. The moment he turned his head, a giant dragon formed by flames collided with his body and blasted him out of the barrier in one breath. Bang! The man was blasted out of the barrier, and the energy of the flames exploded on the barrier. But even if it was a level 5 intermediate magic, it did not damage the barrier at all. Emofan's sudden appearance and the direct blast of a Greek player was something no one had expected. For a moment, it was shocking to the whole audience. The Chinese players, who seemed to be in danger, suddenly felt like they had turned defeat into victory. Greece's advantage just now was suddenly gone. Asharuaya, who controlled Ai Jiangtu and Emofan, was also confused when she saw Emofan appear in the distance. And looking at the shadow prison, was there Emofan's figure? Only one Ai Jiangtu was left, still struggling to resist the erosion of the dark power. HMPH, this is interesting. Although Greece lost a member, Asharuaya was not panicked, but remained calm. Moreover, she had no intention of going over to help, and continued to attack Ai Jiangtu. She also knew Ai Jiangtu. This man was the captain of Huaxia, and he was also a master of the space system. His mental power was also an intermediate existence. Since he had been controlled, he naturally could not escape. Otherwise, there would be some trouble. As for Emofan, although he was born with dual systems, his strength was not weak. But it was just not weak. He was able to beat Gomenon out because he was careless. The original 4 surrounded 3 pressed the fight, and at this moment, it was still 4 surrounded 3. The difference was that the Chinese team members were surrounding him. Quickly deal with them and go help Ai Jiangtu. Nanju looked at Ai Jiangtu, who was suppressed there, and used sound magic to convey her words to everyone. Several people acted at the same time. Jiang Shaoxu rushed straight towards the 3 people with a wave of mental tide. The reason why they were stopped before was because Jiang Shaoxu didn't charge up, but this time, with the help of the power of the magic weapon, the opponent's mind magician instantly lost his power. While the 3 were unable to use magic, Emofan first exploded with a wave of thunder, followed by a blazing flame. Although the 3 magic tools were good, they were extremely embarrassed by the bombardment of Emofan and his men. The most important thing was that they couldn't draw constellations now. The pressure on Jiang Shaoxu's mind was beyond imagination. Her mind magic was so strong, which was naturally due to the magic weapon she got in Peru. Carlos looked at the magic tools on her body that were greatly damaged and immediately said, "Quick, retreat to the saint's side." The 2 team members nodded, and the 3 wanted to escape. Seeing this, Zhao Manan hurriedly cast earth magic. Thump, thump, thump. The flat field suddenly became uneven under his earth magic. After Carlos received the blessing power of the 2 teammates and the interference of the mind was not so strong, the fire constellation was quickly drawn. A fire python blasted out directly, and the huge fire python cleared the way in front of it. The bumpy earth pillars were smashed one by one. The fire python was obviously in a flat road ahead. Seeing this, Zhao Manan shouted MMP! Exclamation mark. However, he had no choice. Although he did not appear just now, he was also poisoned. At this time, he could not exert his full strength. Nanju and Jiang Shaoxu were also like this, but they were naturally unwilling to end up like this. At this time, Emofan took a step ahead of the Greeks and came in front of them, blocking their way again. Space gravity. When they were still trying to attack, he cast space magic. But his mental power was not weak, at least the 3rd level, but it was only the initial stage, and his influence on them was not great. Especially when he wanted to describe the constellation bombing. The opponent's mind mage gave him a wave of impact, which directly destroyed him. Asharuaya saw a few defeated soldiers fleeing, so she would not ignore them. Dark summon. The dimensional space opened, and a dark knight emerged. Dark knight shadow kill. Then, the shadow domain opened up under everyone's feet. Behind the dark knight, a lot of dark servants suddenly appeared. After seeing Asharuaya take action, Carlos and others were relieved. At the same time, they left a meaningful smile to the people behind them. Suddenly surrounded by darkness, Zhao Manan hurriedly cast light magic. Light is the nemesis of darkness, but unfortunately, when the power of darkness is strong, this so-called restraint may also be the opposite. His light system can't break through here at all. Because Emofan has the shadow system and his cultivation has reached a high level, he is better off than others. He was able to escape just now because he possessed the power of the shadow system and with the help of AI Jiang too, but now it was a bit embarrassing. When he saw the Dark Knight leading the charge, Emofan hurriedly warned, "Not good, this foxhoof seems to have used the energy of the shadow system to condense some strange things, be careful." Over there, Zhao Manan and others did not have the shadow system, so the power of light could not be fully exerted. His vision was pitch black, and except for the surroundings, he really could not see clearly. Left. Emofan and Nanju spoke at the same time. Zhao Manan immediately took action, and layers of defensive barriers emerged. Chapter 386 Finals, Part 3. Zhao Manan's reaction was not slow, and his defense was also good. He was not called a tortoiseshell mage for nothing. However, he resisted the frontal attack, but then he heard Emofan and Nanju say, "Be careful, there's something coming from the front." "No, it's on the right." Zhao Manan had no time to react, and the others immediately put on their defensive magic tools. Bang 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 bang. Although they reacted quickly and put on their defensive magic tools at once, how could the dark magic that Ashiruaya used so hard be so easily resisted? In a short while, the few people were attacked from all sides. Fortunately, their magic tools were of a high level, otherwise, they would have been beaten to their knees. They were beaten, but had no way to fight back. The main reason was that they were in the dark and could not see anything clearly. Otherwise, they would not be so passive. Carlos looked at the dark enchantment, breathed a sigh of relief, and then said, "Saint, what should we do?" "You go attack the captain of Huaxia. I will take care of these people." Just as Ashiruaya was about to give the order, a ray of lightning came directly from behind. Ashiruaya hurriedly used her space magic to block it. At the same time, AI Jiang suddenly appeared in front of her. Then a strong space pressure rushed towards her. Carlos and the other two Greek team members saw this and wanted to attack AI Jiang. However, AI Jiang also stood up. With a push, he pushed several people away directly. Ashiruaya also avoided his pressure in this gap with a teleportation. Not bad mental power, but it's not enough for me. Although Ashiruaya was a little careless in her heart, she still looked calm on the surface. AI Jiang was not very disappointed that Ashiruaya avoided his attack, but the corners of his mouth rose slightly. Ashiruaya was also quite depressed by his sudden smile on his expressionless face. AI Jiang, what are you laughing at? Did I say something wrong? AI Jiang crossed his arms and replied calmly, "You are right, but I advise you to look behind." As AI Jiang finished speaking, Emofan gathered thunder in one hand and bombarded Ashiruaya. When Ashiruaya was distracted, several people had already escaped. Of course, the price was also extremely high. Nanju and Jiang Shaoxu lost their combat effectiveness. The two girls were different from Emofan, who was tough and thick, and they were even more incomparable to Zhao Manan, the tortoise-shell mage. Fortunately, AI Jiang rescued them in time, otherwise, even if they were in that dark space, they would have died. The lightning behind was so fierce, how could Ashiruaya not notice it? However, before she could hide, AI Jiang used gravity to suppress her speed. The three people on the Greek side also bombarded AI Jiang with magic. However, Zhao Manan was not a pushover. The moment they attacked, he came to AI Jiang and condensed layers of defensive magic tools, magic weapons and defensive magic. Boom boom boom. For a moment, Zhao Manan, AI Jiang and Ashiruaya were bombarded with magic. Although Emofan was bombing alone, he first used thunder and then fire, and both elemental magics were used to the extreme, and the power was not weaker than the bombing of the three people. But when the thunder and fire dissipated, Ashiruaya stood there intact. If there was any difference, it was that she had an extra set of black armor on her body. Oh my god. Emofan was stunned. Can this game continue? He output with all his strength, but he couldn't break the defense at all. At the same time, AI Jiang and Zhao Manan were not in a good situation. Zhao Manan was already covered with wounds. After all, he had fallen into Ashiruaya's dark trap before and was bombarded. With the blessing power of Carlos and the other two, the attack power was increased several times. Although AI Jiangtu did not lose his fighting power like Zhao Manian, his situation was not very good either. Huaxia changes players. After Zhao Manian, Nanju and Jiang Shaoxu were taken away. Tang Mao, Muningsu and Nanrangni came on the field. Although Nanrangni's output was not very good, he was a healing mage. Now Mo Fan and AI Jiangtu on the field were more or less injured. Without a healing mage, there was no way to fight. Greece also changed players. But this guy was unlucky. He met Muningsu as soon as he came online. Although he was also an elite, he was just a younger brother when he met Muningsu. He was knocked out as soon as he came online. The original huge advantage of Greece was reduced a lot. Ashiruaya knew that Tang Mao was not easy to deal with. Looking at AI Jiangtu and Mo Fan in front of her, her fox eyes glared and said immediately, "Hurry up and don't let the opponent's support come." Carlos and the other two dared not hesitate and bombarded with magic without leaving any mana. Although the two had magic tools, they had no means of defense. With the bombardment and the suppression of Ashirua's space magic, they could only choose magic to bombard. Ahem. Old AI, can you still hold on? Mo Fan dodged a wave of light arrows and asked with scars all over his body. Mo Fan was injured, and AI Jiangtu was not much better. Ashiruaya seemed not to want to give him the opportunity to cast curse magic, and kept targeting him. After a slight breath, AI Jiangtu responded, "Tang Mao is here, we don't have to be eliminated." Mo Fan was happy to hear this. Ashiruaya seemed to have noticed Tang Mao coming. Then, she saw a silver light madly released from her white wrist, and the next moment Tang Mao noticed something was wrong. However, although her space magic was very strong, and had the help of magic tools, Tang Mao's mental power was almost level 8, so this kind of magic circle would not cause much harm to him. Besides, he had been prepared for it. Break. With a gesture, Ashiruaya's trick lost its effect in an instant. At this time, he came in front of the two. Layers of ice walls stood up. Although the bombing of Carlos and the other two shattered the ice wall, they did not hurt anyone, because when the ice wall was broken, Tang Mao and the other two behind had already disappeared. After Ashiruaya came back to her senses, her brows were furrowed. She had always known that Tang Mao was abnormal, but her space magic circle was broken just like that. Damn it. Let's chase. Although she was surprised, Ashiruaya would not give Mo Fan and AI Jiangtu a chance to heal. She knew without thinking that there would definitely be a healing mage among the replacement players on the Chinese side. Chapter 387 Muningsu vs Ashiruaya. Tang Mao did take two people with him to treat. After all, he was not sure that he could handle Ashiruaya's forbidden technique by himself. The most important thing was that she had 3 thugs around her. So, no matter what, he couldn't let these two fighters out. With the 6 wings and space teleportation, Tang Mao's speed had reached a limit. He threw Ashiruaya and the other 4 farther and farther. At this moment, a huge fireball fell from the sky. When Tang Mao saw the fireball fall, a hint of coldness appeared in his eyes. Then a thick ice wall in front of him easily dissolved the fireball. Then he looked in the direction of the attack on himself, and his eyes turned silver again. Although there was no description, the magic was still formed. The powerful space force directly threw the Greek team member who attacked him away. No matter how he tossed, it had no effect at all. Ashiruaya, who was chasing, just cursed inwardly for being stupid. Apart from this, there was no other way. Swish. At this moment, an arrow with a blizzard suddenly shot over. However, this time, it was not their people who sniped, but Muningsu. After feeling the arrow coming towards them, Ashiruaya hurriedly said, "Everyone retreat behind me." The power of this arrow was too strong. Even she was not sure to deal with it. The team members behind her had no hope of dealing with it. However, what Ashiruaya did not expect was that at the moment she finished speaking, she saw Carlos and the other 2 people rise to the challenge. They directly blocked Ashiruaya. "What are you doing? Don't worry about us, we Greece can't lose." Carlos turned around and said with determination. The next moment, the 3 of them crushed the water droplets given by Venice at the same time. With the 3 layers of defense superimposed, and the power of their blessings combined with the magic defense, they welcomed the arrow with its own ice and snowstorm. Bang! After a sky-high sound, the entire area was immediately covered with white cold fog. The power of this arrow can even be said to have crossed the level. This is no longer a magic that a high level wizard can cast. Fortunately, they worked together, and the referee came to their rescue, so they were not killed directly by the arrow. Seeing this, Ashiruaya used the sword energy as a wall, and the sword in her hand flew, forming a sword energy defense to protect herself. At the same time, she took off the black necklace hanging on her chest, and held the necklace in her left hand. In an instant, a black beam of light fell from the clouds, and descended on Ashiruaya. The dark breath surged like clouds, and the whole rocky land was filled with black gas. The dark element quickly filled the area around Ashiruaya, turning into a giant dark gas vortex, and instantly expelled the ice and snow elves left by the arrow from this land. The dark breath was so huge that the old wizards in the audience frowned. It was not the first time they had seen Ashiruaya use this power. However, even if I saw it again, I could still smell an extremely terrible smell in the battlefield. It was cold but restless. It looked quite stable but extremely dangerous. There was no ice element in the air, which was completely occupied by darkness, but Muningsu raised her fair jade hand, and an ice attribute power condensed in the ice crystal bow again. From this second on, the power of the ice element revived again in the darkness. I advise you that even I can't fully control the extreme of this power. Ashiruaya was a little unhappy when she saw Muningsu, who was going to fight her head on. But at the same time, she was a little puzzled. What were these people thinking? Zheluo was like this before, and Muningsu was also like this now, come on. Muningsu responded briefly with 2 words, and she had already started to draw her bow. The whistling cold wind even made those spectators who didn't practice magic feel a little bit of fear, as if they were witnessing a natural blizzard of destruction at hand. The Snow White Storm and Ashiruaya's Dark Vortex formed 2 positions respectively. It was like 2 armies were fighting for the battlefield between them. If any other element appeared here, they would not be able to gain a foothold at all. Descend. Ashiruaya obtained the real dark nourishment. The armor pieces full of black light, an evil aura were attached to her body piece by piece. On the basis of the original, the domineering aura of the Dark Sword Master was revealed. The sword in her hand swung gently, and the sword energy was like thousands of moths scattering, which was spectacular and extremely dangerous. On the other side, Muningsu's crystal arrow also slowly appeared. She was tightly pinched by her slender index and middle fingers. The white snowflakes danced wildly beside her. A delicate and beautiful face was full of determination that never yielded. The power of the previous arrow was already very strong, but it seemed that there was still a big gap compared to the power of the current arrow. That is to say, Muningsu did not use her full strength just now. The power of darkness and ice and snow is getting bigger and bigger. The arrow in Muningsu's hand is completely aimed at Ashiruaya. A power that can really turn everything into death is hidden in this arrow. Ashiruaya saw the power that is equal to her. Her face was full of surprise and majesty. She only knew that Tang Mao on the Chinese side was a pervert, but when they really fought, she found that almost every one of them was perverted. It's no wonder that China can kill until now this year. With such strength, it can be called the strongest team among the young generation. Since it has come to this point, let the darkness and ice and snow compete. Dark Dawn. Ashiruaya slashed out with a sword, and the world was dark, but there was a ray of dawnlight that tore it apart. The whole brilliance was cold, and it brought not the hope of dawn, but the beginning of despair and death in the next dark era. Silence arrow. With a cry, Muningsu's snow drilling arrow flew out, and a shocking snowstorm suddenly swept over, covering the sky and the earth. The scene was so shocking that this small independent space was about to break. When the arrow shattered when it hit the dawn-breaking sword light, the dawn-breaking sword light also disappeared under the arrow's force. The darkness that permeated the entire battlefield disintegrated in an instant, releasing a bright light. The white snow in the sky also melted away, as if it had never appeared. Hoo-hoo. Just when people thought that these 2 huge magics would destroy each other, a cold white light suddenly flashed in the center of the battlefield. The white light flashed, and then the extremely terrifying elemental storm exploded in all directions. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 388, The Sea Embraces All Rivers. Two energies exploded, and the huge forest nearby was flattened to the ground, leaving no wood piles behind. Even the surrounding river water turned into black ice and froze to stillness. Fortunately, there were many big guys on the ship, and they worked together to stop the horrible impact for the audience. The people outside the venue were safe, but the people inside the venue were in a very bad situation. This was almost equivalent to a collision of superclass magic. Even some of the referees who came to rescue suffered some injuries. Fortunately, these students were fine and were rescued. Of course, Tangmao did not have any rescue referees, because when Ashiruya and Muningsu took action, he threw Mo Fan and Ai Jiang to out of bounds, and used ice walls, magic tools, space walls, and almost all the means of defense. But even so, he still suffered a lot of damage. Hoo-la la. After jumping out of the ice, Tangmao rushed to where Muningsu was. Ashiruya's attack was not just that one sword, and compared with Muningsu's consumption, she didn't seem to have consumed much. At least with this kind of destruction magic, it wouldn't be a big problem to have another 4 or 5 swords, but Muningsu's current strength would be drained out of her body after releasing one arrow. In the destroyed battlefield, Ashiruya, wearing a black armor, stood proudly. She had taken off a light silver mask, and her face was a bit majestic, which was very different from her usual charming appearance. Muningsu was surrounded by a few light snowflakes, which set off her unique and independent icy beauty. She saw Ashiruya standing there safely, and her already fair face was already pale. Apart from Tangmao, this was the first time she had encountered such a terrifying peer. Although Muningsu knew that the power was limited and not hers, it was her who was in control, just like her own ice crystal bow. However, this time, her bow did not show the despairing power as before. It's very powerful, but how many arrows can you shoot with your current strength? Ashiruya looked at Muningsu and said in a calm voice, 1 arrow. She was still very frugal with her words, and she didn't mean to lie, so she admitted it directly. Then go down. My purpose here is to teach that bastard a lesson. Ashiruya suddenly smiled charmingly, and then said, I can tell you clearly that the power of the next shot will not be much different from the previous one. Even if you don't die, your body will be corroded by the dark power. You don't want to lose your life for him, right? Upon hearing this, Muningsu aimed the ice crystal bow in her hand at Ashiruya again. In response, her fox eyes were full of disbelief and doubt. Is it worth it? My choice has nothing to do with you. Go ahead. Muningsu did not respond, but chose to draw the bow again. At this moment, her cold little hand was suddenly held. Muningsu paused, looked back, and found that Tangmao had rushed over. He was not out. Both Muningsu and Ashiruya were not surprised. After all, his strength is here. If he can be knocked out by this aftermath, how can he be arrogant? Leave the rest to me. Tangmao persuaded softly, looked at Ashiruya again, smiled and said, this foxhoof, it's me who wants to make trouble. She was very unhappy with Tangmao's gentle appearance, and then said delicately, yes, people are looking for a lover. Why are you blocking the way? Hurry up and get off. However, Muningsu didn't care much about these stimulations. She wasn't a jealous woman. If she was, wouldn't she have been jealous all along? Don't be so wild. Do you really think your dad can't cure you? Although Tangmao was very moved by her appearance, this was an important moment, and so many people were watching. Especially since he had just promised Jiang Shaoxu not long ago. He didn't want to talk about love on the spot. Even if he was greedy, he had to wait for a chance to let her experience the dangers of the world. Ashiruya was very unhappy with Tangmao's confident look. He said angrily, Muningsu, if you don't go down, get ready to waste time in bed with this bastard. Tangmao curled his lips and retorted unhappily, I really don't know where you get your confidence from, you slut. Ashiruya straightened up her bulging armor and said in a turbulent voice, strength is my confidence. After admiring her, Tangmao said again, since you are so confident, do you want to bet? What to bet on? On the second half of my life. Ashiruya glared with her beautiful eyes, raised the black sword in her hand high, and slashed directly. Tangmao had no intention of running away. At the same time, dark clouds covered the sky, and thunder crackled down. The lightning directly repelled the slashing black sword. The moment they discovered the formation of the Thunder Domain, Ashurua and Muningsu realized at the same time that the elemental energy in their own domain was actually absorbed. ? You are shameless. Ashurua reacted immediately. This was definitely Tangmao's doing. She immediately scolded him. You are greedy for my body, but you don't do it directly, and you still call me shameless? Tangmao's goal has been achieved. The Thunder Domain has been fully deployed, and the power of the two women's domains has been reduced. Naturally, he doesn't care what Ashurua says. He doesn't want to weaken Muningsu, but there is no way. If he simply condenses the Thunder Domain, in the case of the two people's first deployment, the power may not be achieved even 1/10. However, through his own Shadow Magic Domain and Ice Magic Domain, after absorbing the Tyrant Wild Thunder and condensing it into Thunder Element, it will be different. Go to hell. Ashurua has never seen such a shameless person. Immediately, the black giant sword fell again. This time, it was chopped down with the blessing of dark energy, which was almost equivalent to the full force of the Dark Sword Master. Tangmao naturally did not dare to be careless. You must know that the power of this sword seems mediocre, but he knows that this blow is even better than the sword that collided with Muningsu. Concentrate. Tangmao stood in front of Muningsu, a silver constellation appeared, and then he aimed at the black giant sword falling from the sky and forcibly increased the gravity. Then, the thunder that kept falling from the Thunder Elm also gathered in his hands. Chapter 389 Finals, Part 4. In midair, the giant sword was suppressed by gravity, but it still did not stop falling. Although Ashurua's space magic was not as powerful as Tangmao's, her mental power was also intermediate, and she used magic beyond her class, so she could not dissolve it. And he himself might not have tried to dissolve it with space magic. At this time, the thunder in his hand was still condensing. Or Thunder Hammer was already in his hand. Of course, with the auxiliary functions of the Purple Sky Domain, it is natural to condense thunder into other vessels, but these days, it is not certain that you can beat a sword player without a hammer. The hammer emitting terrifying thunder power is still absorbing the thunder in the domain, and the Thunder Domain, which was originally full of violent and destructive power, has gradually dissipated at this time. But, as Tangmao waved, the hammer wind made the entire barrier vibrate with a buzzing sound. This is a magic barrier set up by several superclass mages. It can be said that, as long as it is not a superclass mage, it is almost impossible to destroy this barrier, and the audience is absolutely safe. But who would have thought that two small high-level mages would actually burst out with superclass magic power? The governor of Venice was sweating profusely. After all, once the barrier was broken, it would cause terrible casualties. Although many big guys here have taken action, the magic power displayed by the two at this time seems to have completely crushed the gathering of magic energy just now. Although there are many big guys, it is still not easy to ensure that the audience on the 4 cruise ships are safe. After all, not everyone has light and water. Moreover, who knows where it will be blown up. The most helpless thing is that at this time, he can't let the cruise ship evacuate. After all, many people spent a lot of money just to watch this battle. Sure. At the same time, the ice field around Muningsu condensed again. She chose to draw the bow again, because she was not sure whether Tangmao could block Ashurua's sword. So, she wanted to help. However, Tangmao suddenly said, "Just protect yourself, I don't need your help." Hearing this, Muningsu wanted to say something, but the giant sword that was restricted in the air had already chopped down with the help of Ashurua's space magic. Be careful. Before the bow was pulled, Muningsu could only choose to remind him. Thunderstorm Hammer. Tangmao seemed to have been prepared for a long time. The lightning element continued to be incorporated into the hammer. As he continued to dance, he directly hit the sword. Bang! The collision between the two did not dissipate directly, but produced a loud noise! Exclamation mark. At the same time, the lightning element and dark energy occupied half of the field respectively. Of course, the only element field that was still struggling was Muningsu's ice field, which was still struggling to maintain the ice element. Although it seemed very small, it was already very good to be able to support the battle between two cross-level opponents. Boom boom. After the thunder exploded everywhere, Asharuaya's giant sword suddenly disappeared and was held in her hand. Then, the two began to fight. Although magicians have physical fitness that surpasses ordinary humans, there are very few who can fight in close combat. Even some superclass magicians fight from a distance. The leaders of various countries who protect the power of the barrier were also stunned. After all, they are all magicians. Isn't this a big gap? After a hard fight, the field was only 1/10 of it, and the two stopped. The light silver mask of Asharuaya was reflected on both sides of the black sword. It was impossible to see her emotions, but she was heroic, and her loneliness and coldness revealed the ruthlessness and indifference of Deadpool. One word: sword. After just fighting, her body was still in the same place, motionless, looking like a sculpture. After she spit out this name, the dark breath suddenly contracted in the shape of ring teeth at the tip of Asharuaya's light toes. One after another, the dark breath continued to shrink into points and gathered at the toes. Suddenly, a raging dark light lit up between Asharuaya's raised feet, and it blossomed into a dead lotus. Thunderbolt. At the moment, when the dark light cut through the broken ground and the ice layer, Tangmao smashed it down with a hammer. Boom. Two elemental forces rose to the sky in an instant. The ice layer, that had just frozen the seawater nearby, suddenly broke into pieces. Skyflame funeral. After resisting Asharuaya's attack, Tangmao held the hammer in one hand and drew the constellations at the same time. Kingluan. Jiagang. Hellfire. A huge boulder filled with explosive power fell from the sky. Silver light appeared around Asharuaya. Before the flamestone hit her head, she cut through the space where the flamestone fell and absorbed it. Explosion. Tangmao was a space mage himself, and he was not unfamiliar with this kind of space crack. However, he was a little surprised that Asharuaya could absorb the entire flamestone. However, this was the hellfire that combined the explosive power of the Jiagang. At the moment of falling, even though it was dissolved by space, he still successfully used Yanji's fire control power and exploded with a boom. Asharuaya was even more shocked and retreated. That is, there was a domain that she had arranged long ago. Otherwise, the shock of this sudden explosion would be enough to throw her into the sea. Seeing that Asharuaya had not been blown back by a wave, Tangmao said impatiently, "Slutty fox, what are you still holding on to? This power is very strong, but now you still have the magic power to swing the sword a few times." After several consecutive collisions, although Tangmao was also very exhausted. However, after absorbing the power of other magic element through the tyrant domain, the magic power of the thunder system is still very full. If the fight continues like this, Asharuaya will definitely lose. But this dead woman looks like she will continue to fight and not give up. It's a headache. Asharuaya snorted coldly and charged a stream of magic energy from her necklace. Then the star blue light in the necklace enveloped her body like liquid. Her shadow magic energy was obviously insufficient just now, but it was replenished the moment she was wrapped in blue light. Exclamation mark. "You damn woman, get out of here." Tangmao immediately raised his hammer and smashed it. He was not going to give her a chance to recover her magic energy. After all, his lightning system was not endless. It was because all his magic systems were consumed at the same time that he was able to stand firm. Chapter 391. A hammer over 10 meters long, full of explosive thunder, smashed down, and Asharuaya naturally didn't dare to continue to recover. Although it was nothing to be interrupted midway, Asharuaya was still angry and cursed in her heart. Tangmao has no manners and is not gentlemanly enough. Boom. A hammer fell, and the remaining land was instantly scattered. The nearby seawater was shaken and rolled up, and the huge cruise ship was trembling. Fortunately, there was a barrier and dozens of superclass mages to block the waves, so that the waves did not roll. Otherwise, the consequences would be really unimaginable. But even though it was clear that this place was dangerous, no one still thought of escaping from here. Because this year's national government competition is undoubtedly the most exciting one. Whether it is Saint Asharuaya or Tangmao, after today's battle, both of them can definitely be called representatives of the world's young generation. A high-level mage showed super-level strength, which was definitely unprecedented in the history of magic. After the hammer fell, Ashiruya below was not only fine, but also suddenly counterattacked, and a sword came to kill her throat. Bang. Fortunately, his mental power was strong enough. The moment the opponent's sword came out, he reacted instinctively and blocked it with the hammer. Ice crystal breaking bow. Just as Tang Mao was resisting this sword, Mu Ningxu, who had been unknown all the time, finally made a move. Silver threads fluttered, and the lapels of her clothes rustled. Mu Ningxu stretched out her arms wildly, and her curvy figure actually floated slightly in the air. Diamond dust condensed in front of Mu Ningxu, and the graceful bow of the ice crystal breaking bow gradually appeared. The long crystal arrow was pinched between Mu Ningxu's fingers. Storm Zero. After the arrow was shot out with a swoosh, it was still the wind that blessed the fused ice soul and shot towards Ashiruya head on. Wherever it passed, everything turned into ice. Of course, the suppression force of the thunder domain in this area was very strong, and the ice layer was easily shattered as soon as it was formed. However, even if the power of the arrow was reduced a lot, it was still enough to kill a commander level demon in seconds. Ashiruya was fighting with Tang Mao with all her strength at this time. When she found that the arrow was coming, she knew it was not good. Although she had a lot of treasures in her hands, in this case, the outcome was obviously obvious. For Tang Mao, the scum, she was unwilling to not be able to cut him a few times, so she had to give up. She put away the sword in time to protect herself, and the next moment the black energy wrapped her in it. Tang Mao, who got a breath, dispersed the power of the thunder system, and the field of the ice system quickly replaced it. He knew very well that this oof dark energy was not so easy to deal with. So what he had to do now was to increase the power of this arrow. Although the snow girl had not woken up yet, Tang Mao could still use her power. In the blink of an eye, this place that was originally full of thunderbolts was transformed into an ice and snowy appearance. Mu Ningxu's ice crystal bow is a great weapon of the Mu family. It has been fused with Tang Mao's 0-degree power for so long, and its power has surpassed it by many times. Now in Tang Mao's double ice domain, the power of the cold air is constantly increasing. Bang! Another collision between ice and darkness. The movement is still not very big, but when the black energy is frozen, shattered, and dispersed, the cold air directly swept all around. The sea area under the 4 luxury cruise ships instantly became a thick layer of ice. And Ashiruya, who was wrapped in darkness, was also hit by the strong impact of the ice element, and was frozen all over. The high quality magic tool wrapped around her delicate body has been damaged by 7 or 8 at this time, and some places even have snow white ***. When seeing Venice's defense emerge, Tang Mao put away the power of the ice domain in time, because now Ashiruya has fainted. Although this woman was quite resentful towards him, he could not hurt her badly, just because of her face and her devilish figure. Huaxia wins. Huaxia team ranks first. After Ashiruya was taken away for treatment, the referee looked around and breathed a sigh of relief as there were no casualties. Then he solemnly read out the results. The salute that Venice City had prepared long ago suddenly soared into the air, and the colorful light was reflected on the faces of every member of the Huaxia team. Win, win, we win. First. We are first. Tang Mao is really a pervert, but the last arrow of Goddess Mu is really awesome. Although there are still many people who have not played, this does not affect their joy. Speaking of which, they are also members of this session of the national government, and they are also the students who have gained the greatest benefits for the country. First place. This is the first time in the history of Huaxia that such an honor has been obtained. Xiao Zheng, the great speaker, was so excited that his tears fell unconsciously. The few people who had been injured and left the field before were also full of excitement and enjoyed the cheers from the people around them. At that moment, they even felt no pain from their injuries. In the following days after the finals, everyone was completely liberated. Venice was a charming city. After the final battle was over, they could also revel in the water city of Venice for a few days and nights. They were all young people, and their indulgence was boundless. Tang Mao was not afraid at all in the bar, but on the other side of the battlefield, he was really afraid. These women seemed to have taken stimulants one by one. They were simply devilish. After waking up, Tang Mao found that except for Zhao Manayan, who was still half dead in the bar, everyone else didn't know what to do. But in fact, Think about it, the game is over, and now it's probably time to hook up with each other, and those who didn't hook up with girls can hook up on the streets of Venice. Anyway, the first place team will stand still for a minute, and someone will always recognize you and throw themselves into your arms. As for the girls, they probably wandered around Venice. Tangmao went to Jiang Shaoxu, Muningsu, and Munigio's rooms, but unfortunately they were all empty. Thinking back to last night, he felt that he was really generous. He was even generous to everyone. Fortunately, Irene and Mochizuki Kyanksen were not here, otherwise it would be afternoon before they could get up today. Damn it, wake up, go out and have a drink. After arriving at Zao Manan's room, seeing his half-dead appearance, Tangmao stepped on him unceremoniously. Zao Manan opened his eyes in a daze, and when he heard drink, he immediately climbed to the head of the bed and vomited. Damn it, clean up after vomiting, and call me again. Seeing this, Tangmao cursed, not hiding his disgust at all, and turned around and left his room directly. Chapter 391 Zao Manan's Concern. Tangmao originally wanted to go out to party, but without this to pay the bill, no matter what he ate or drank, the taste was too different. Of course, Zao Manan was not willing to be his wallet, but because he lost the bet, he was now his wallet. The biggest reason for this was that this bastard couldn't afford to play and didn't pay. Fortunately, Tangmao had won a huge sum of money in the treasure hunt before, and he also had a share of the Peruvian mine, and got a city for free, so Big Head didn't bother with him. But if he doesn't skin him, he has to suck some blood. The expenses in Venice, this thief needs to reimburse himself. I'm ready, let's go. Zao Manan packed himself up, and at this time, he was back to his showy look. Where are you going to have fun today, Mr. Zao? Tangmao asked with his head in his hands, looking leisurely. Come with me first. Zao Manan looked worried, and said to Tangmao. Having known Zao Manan for so long, this was the first time Tangmao saw him in this state. Then, he thought of his brother. However, Tangmao did not say anything, but nodded. Then, the two of them walked outside. As they walked, they came to the seaside of Venice. In fact, the whole of Venice is located in a very vast bay. The whole bay is irregularly half-moon shaped. Interestingly, there is a long sea and land crossing it, like a thick string on a bow. There was no conversation along the way. The two of them just walked forward. There were quite a few people traveling along the seawall. There were many top hotels on it, shining with golden and magnificent light in the sunset. How it's so strange. When did an artificial island appear there? Maybe it was built during the national government competition? Just as the two were walking aimlessly, two old men came over and pointed to an island in the distance and muttered. There is still a large bay between here and Venice City, and the island fighting stage was set up here. Seeing Zao Manan's constipation, Tangmao said impatiently, just fart if you want to, why are you so mad? Hearing this, Zao Manan seemed a little hesitant. After a while of silence, he said, it's about my father. My father is not young anymore, and he had a lot of problems when he was young. This time we won first place, and I thought I won enough face for him, but he fell ill, and didn't see it at all. Isn't this the main reason for your constipation? Tangmao shrugged, and said with a little dissatisfaction. You are the worm in my stomach. Zao Manan looked at Tangmao with a little surprise. You don't deserve it. Zao Manan curled his lips, but in the end he didn't say what he meant. At least now he hasn't figured out how to say it. After hesitating for a while, he sighed and said, oh, forget it, we just won first place, I shouldn't talk to you about such unhappy things. Then why did you bring me here to do something? He was also a little helpless about this situation. Zao Manan hesitated to speak, and finally just said I'm sorry. He hadn't decided whether to say what he was thinking about. Tangmao didn't force him to do anything, but said, if you want to relax, go to the direction of that island. There you will see some confusing things clearly. Some things, after all, he needs to experience them personally. He is not really his father, and it is impossible for him to protect him for the rest of his life. Although Zao Manan was puzzled, he did not question anything. Yeah. Not long after Tang Mao and Zhao Mannian separated and returned, suddenly, in the place where Zhao Mannian went, between the seawall and the waters of Venice, a strange cry shook the sky, and the roar that shook the entire city suddenly rolled up, which seemed particularly palpitating and terrifying in this dark night. Oh my god. What kind of monster is that? That island is actually moving. What kind of demon is that? In Venice, hundreds of thousands of people witnessed that tsunami. Countless magicians flew into the sky, and the alarm sounded immediately. The purple light shone in the city of Venice. Such a huge creature is obviously not a small monster. It is a typical big boss. However, no one expected that such a huge monster would appear in this seemingly safe sea area. For a time, the crowd was in a panic. Only Tang Mao stood there quietly, because he knew the true face of the island. It was not a terrifying demon, but Baksha. After Baksha's tossing, it still did not reveal its true appearance. The night covered its body, and people could only see its huge black outline that exceeded people's cognition. Its body ran directly over the seawall land, and the entire seawall land broke directly like a branch, and countless debris fell into the turbulent sea. Perhaps because it successfully rescued Zhao Mannian, it did not stay for long and quickly disappeared into the sea. The old mages in Venice realized it later. When they heard the noise here and rushed here, they saw the seawall land sinking, and their faces were extremely ugly. The seawall land is no less than a narrow townland, but now it has been completely destroyed, and the middle area is completely submerged by seawater. Venice is the most famous water city, and there are many hidden superclass mages, but from the time that Bazaar appeared to the time he left, no superclass mage really took action. This shows how terrifying a monarch with strength close to the top level is. After a long period of martial law, there was no movement again, and the garrison mages in Venice were relieved. Fortunately, the other party did not intend to attack the city, otherwise Venice would suffer heavy losses, even if it survived the crisis tonight. After Bazaar left, the government learned that Zhao Mannian had disappeared strangely. And finally, according to the investigation, it was found that the giant beast that appeared seemed to have attacked someone. All the strange coincidences made everyone sigh that Zhao Mannian was in a bad mood. If he hadn't gone there, he might not have died in a foreign land. But there is no regret medicine in the world. Afterwards, although Venice said that it would do its best to investigate the matter, and also said that it would look for Zhao Mannian's whereabouts. However, everyone knew that this was just a statement. After all, Bazaar could appear here quietly and leave suddenly, which had already proved his strong strength. If he could really stop the search, would such a thing happen? Chapter 392 Parthenon. A few days later, Zhao Mannian's life or death was still unknown. However, a few days passed, and life went on. After a few days of silence, the other official members of the national government team looked forward to the reward of the first place. After all, that was the most exciting God Seal praise. Tang Mao and his group of Chinese official team members went to Greece. The original plan was to receive the praise of the new goddess on the day of the ceremony to elect the goddess in the Parthenon temple, where believers from all over the world gathered under the sacred mountain. However, the election did not seem to have a reasonable result. It would take some time for the birth of the goddess, and their god seal praise would also be done by the temple mother. There are 3 saints in the Parthenon today: Panagia, who has the highest support, Asheruia, who has the most loyal supporters, and Xingxia, who is tepid, and is called by people to make up the numbers, but seems to have a strong background. Tang Mao has no interest in what happened in the Parthenon. Compared with the conspiracy here, he is more interested in how powerful his thunder system can be. After a journey, we finally arrived at the Parthenon. Following the 10,000 people ladder of the God Mountain, the government officials, led by Fengli and Pang Lei, went to the Faith Hall first. Every day, there is an endless stream of people who go to the Faith Hall to pray for blessings. In order to gain health and longevity, many people are willing to spend a lot of money in exchange for that little bit of faith contribution, so as to get the blessing of the goddess hall. The blessing of a trainee maid can keep a baby from getting sick or infected by diseases for 10 years. The people of the goddess hall cannot do this blessing for everyone one by one, so they will select from the most devout believers and those who are willing to pay huge tributes. This is also one of the main reasons why the Parthenon Force can become the top existence in the world. For a health blessing, believers are willing to go through wind and rain for 10 years, and the rich spend a lot of money. The God Seal praises the top magic in the blessing system, which cannot be measured by money. All big forces always have all kinds of strange rules. The Parthenon is no exception. When climbing here, you can only choose to go down step by step, and you can't use any flying magic tools or flying skills. Along the way, I saw that the sacred mountain was lush and green, and the fragrance of flowers was everywhere. Every time I climbed over a mountain, I could often see a large area of flowers and trees all over the mountain. When the mountain wind blew, the colorful flowers danced lightly in the air, beautiful as a picture, and fragrant. It was really a holy place on earth. It's so beautiful here. Jiang Shaoxu looked left and right along the way and said with a girlish heart, Tang Mao, can we settle here in the future? Tang Mao curled his lips, obviously not interested. What's good here? No matter how decorated the appearance is, it can't hide its rotten roots. Pang Lei and Feng Lei, who were leading the way in front, were shocked. At the same time, they stopped and turned back to sternly signal Tang Mao to be careful with his words. Not to mention the two of them, even Jiang Shaoxu had a headache. This man of his family is really bold. No matter whether there are any changes in the sacred power of Parthenon, not everyone can comment on it. As for the others, they chose not to hear what Tang Mao said just now. There was no conversation along the way. After a while, they followed the 10,000 people ladder and came to the night hall. No outsiders were allowed to enter above the night hall. The restrictions here were even stronger. If they were slightly touched, they would be wiped out. Only by continuing along the mountain road named Xin could they officially enter the Goddess Mountain. After arriving here, Pang Lei shamelessly began to boast about how great this place was. However, Tang Mao disagreed. Then, everyone entered the Goddess Peak, but the people in the Night Hall did not let them get close to the territory of the Goddess Hall. Only patrolling knights and members of the Goddess Hall could enter the Goddess Hall. Others were not allowed to enter. This is His Excellency Heilang. Feng Li took everyone to find the Night Hall Master and introduced him to everyone. Heilang was wearing a purple and gold helmet, dressed in an ancient Greek style, and stood majestically at the top of the stairs. At this time, he was giving a lecture and had no intention of paying attention to the Huaxia government. Knights are divided into several levels: Blue Star Knight, Silver Moon Knight, Golden Sun Knight, and Purple Sky Knight. Xiaoyu is the exclusive one for the Hall Master. The Night Hall has a total of 1 Grand Hall Master and 3 Deputy Hall Masters. The rest are divided into Golden Glory Knights, Silver Moon Knights, and Blue Star Knights. After a while, Heilang finally finished his lecture. He glanced at the people from the Huaxia national government who had been standing next to him for some time. Sir Heilang, we are from the Huaxia national government. We come here to receive the divine seal of the Whole Mother. Feng Li saw the other party looking at him and walked forward. Heilang didn't even look at Feng Li, but his eyes fell on Pang Lei, showing a contemptuous smile and said, "You still have the face to come here?" His arrogant attitude really made people very uncomfortable. "Why can't I come here? I'm the chief instructor of the national government. The students I taught defeated your Greek team members. That is an extremely glorious thing." Pang Lei also retorted directly. He had talked about his flirtatious things before, so when the Hall Master spoke up and retorted with him, everyone was not so confused. Heilang snorted coldly, and his windbreaker inlaid with sparkling diamonds was lifted up. He turned around and walked into the hall. Pang Lei didn't care about this and said in a calm voice, "Heilang, we are here to receive the praise of the God Seal. You have left us alone for so long. What do you mean by walking away now?" Feng Li, who was standing aside, was so angry. What the hell is this? What's so great about Parthenon? How could he be so arrogant? Does it mean that I, the Hall Master, have to take care of such a mess? Heilang threw down a sentence and ignored Pang Lei and continued to walk. Pang Lei smiled at Feng Li's look. "Don't be angry, these people have always been like this. Even if people from the New York Temple and St. Paul's Cathedral come over, they dare to show their displeasure. Don't pay attention to them. Heilang was beaten by me when he was young, and it's normal for him to be dissatisfied with me." Feng Li finally sighed slightly. He also knew that he came here to make the students stronger. Even if he suffered some grievances, he couldn't just give up. After all, this kind of reward is hard to come by, and if you miss it, you can't buy it even with money. Jiang Xiaoxu, who was beside Tang Mao, looked at him and whispered, "Damn, you seem to know a lot about Parthenon." Tang Mao shook his head and said, "There's nothing to know. Those so-called world's top forces are all the same. There are not many people who truly serve the people in this world now." Chapter 393 Divine Seal 2.5 times. After a while, a golden knight ran up, looked at everyone with a dead face, and announced his name. "I'm Hasha. I will take you to wait." Seeing the receptionist, not only Fengli, who was expressionless, was unhappy, but everyone else was also a little dissatisfied. Is the Parthenon really a bit arrogant? Pang Lei is at least the chief of the Chinese court. If the positions are compared, it is actually equivalent to the mother of the Parthenon. He Long, the master of the Night Hall, is actually one level lower. However, He Long obviously did not take Pang Lei seriously. Not only did he not take the responsibility for the reception, but he did not even let the deputy master come to receive the audience, but called a golden knight. Even if the golden knight is a superclass mage, in terms of level, he is many levels lower than Pang Lei, and the strength is even more different. They are both superclass, but Pang Lei is a superclass with 4 perfect element. This golden knight is probably at most a double class superclass. However, Pang Lei didn't care. He followed the guide and stayed in the night hall. When the guide left, he warned everyone not to move around. When will the temple mother give them the divine seal praise? Fengli suppressed his anger and asked with a stern face. The temple mother is busy with affairs. You need to wait. I can't tell the specific time. The golden knight Hashi responded. What is puzzling is that a superclass mage not only did not leave the temple, but also stood guard at the door, not allowing them to come in and out at will, not being able to visit, not being able to walk around, not being able to do anything. What's the difference between this and being under house arrest? It's like being in prison and being watched closely. This made everyone in China extremely dissatisfied. And this wait lasted for 2 days, and there was still no news from the temple mother. Pang Lei was a little impatient. Pang Lei was not an idle person. How could he wait here all the time? Moreover, not caring at the beginning did not mean that he had no temper. After Pang Lei got furious, then the deputy hall master Cass came over and said that he would personally report to the hall mother. Needless to say, this violent temper shocked Fengli. When he came before, he was still friendly, but suddenly exploded. Although Fengli was also very angry, he also knew why they came here. With his persuasion, nothing else happened. Of course, although Pang Lei was very unhappy, he was just angry and furious. It was obviously impossible to really do something here. The Parthenon can have such a status above the world. Naturally, it is also because they have a certain strength. After that, the Hall Mother finally arrived on the 4th day, but they did not accept it here, but directly left the city of Athens, and arrived at a mountain next to the Mediterranean Sea, where they held a ceremony to praise the divine seal. Everyone originally thought that this would be a grand occasion with countless people looking up at it, but it turned out to be a rather remote place. Although the mountain was built to be as beautiful as a villa manor, and the Mediterranean Sea could be seen at a glance, it was a bit disappointing for many people who needed a name. After the God Seal ceremony is completed, you need to meditate for a month. During this period, you cannot use magic frequently. It is best to keep meditating all the time, so that you can fully absorb the God Seal ceremony. Fengli did not pay attention to their emotions, but explained what he knew to everyone. The temple mother was a woman whose age could not be seen. She was solemn and gentle. She did not say a word to everyone. From beginning to end, a female sage told them how to do it. The God Seal ceremony was performed one after another, and Tang Mao was naturally ranked first. And it is said that the earlier you are, the higher the increase you will get. On the altar of the Praise Mountain, the temple mother stood quietly under a sky-asking tree. The sunlight turned into strands of golden cloth and leaked onto the temple mother's body. The temple mother, who was whispering softly, exuded a holy glow all over her body, and her whispers, like a song, echoed repeatedly in the mountains. When Tang Mao walked up, the female sage next to him signaled to kneel down, but Tang Mao ignored it directly. The temple mother didn't seem to care much. Seeing that he was so uncooperative, the female sage who reminded Tang Mao snorted in dissatisfaction. The temple mother gently placed her palm on Tang Mao's forehead. The whispering sound seemed to have reached the most important moment. Her speaking speed became very fast. Tang Mao, who closed his eyes, felt that there were countless musical instruments representing the sacred breath beating next to his head, making all the distracting thoughts in his mind disappear. It was just like the feeling when he first awakened magic. Without waiting for the temple mother to remind him, he focused his mental power on the thunder system. Soon, all the brilliance focused on the lightning galaxy, and the entire galaxy glowed with a mysterious halo, and all the stars were also stained with this layer of light. They were sometimes strong and sometimes weak at first, and even disappeared, but gradually they were completely integrated into it, like a brand, and became solid. Most blessing magic, including the power increase of some magic tools and magic weapons, is only temporary, but this kind of God Seal praise is different. It can be directly branded into the magic galaxy, similar to strengthening the entire galaxy. Even if the galaxy turns into a sea of stars in the future, the newly born stars will also have this light mark. God Seal praise permanently enhances the basic power of the magician in this system. It does not overlap with any other blessing system enhancement magic, amplified magic tools, magic weapons, elemental species, etc. And because of this is the most coveted part of God Seal praise. The whole process was very slow. It was not completed in an instant to imprint a permanent blessing seal in the magician's spiritual world, and it was also obvious that the magic loss was quite large. After a long time, the God Seal praise ceremony was officially completed. The God Seal is already in your magic system, and the Temple Mother has helped you consolidate it. But you still need time to consolidate it. Loss is inevitable. How much you can keep depends on your luck. The sage's voice was very cold, as if it was because Tang Mao ignored her just now. Tang Mao didn't care, because at the moment of absorption, the Killer Jade had already absorbed these amplifications. Originally, he just thought that it would be enough to fuse twice, but he didn't expect that the Killer Jade was so powerful 2.5 times the energy was actually absorbed in full. The entire God Seal praise lasted for 2 full days. After performing all the God Seal techniques, the Temple Mother also left here in a exhausted state. The female sage was supervising here, and the Golden Knight Hashi would naturally wait here. However, Pang Lei left after witnessing that everyone had obtained the Divine Seal, because he had many things to do. The instructor Feng Li had to stay here to prevent any accidents from happening to the students. Although it was not dangerous, the team leader could not be absent. After getting the amplification, everyone went to their own independent meditation room. Even if they were playful, they understood how rare this Divine Seal praise was. They had to grit their teeth and persevere for a month. After a month, their strength would once again be far ahead of their peers. Chapter 394, Get a Younger Brother. Retreat is nothing but practice. For Tang Mao, who has been in Xianshan for a year, a month is nothing. Moreover, the Killer Jade helps him contain the power of the Divine Seal, and he can practice other systems as an auxiliary, which is impeccable. The most important thing is that this 2.5 times power has lasted for more than 20 days, and there is no loss at all. His thunder system is a destructive magic. With high level strength, he can cast super level destructive thunder. Now with the 2.5 times increase in basic growth, how terrible the destructive damage of this thunder bombing is in the future is simply unimaginable. Although it has been very stable, Tang Mao did not rush to leave, but continued to retreat here. Listen Mountain is completely isolated from the outside world, which avoids interference from external objects. The national government team that won the first place is also qualified to continue practicing here. Practice has no time. In a blink of an eye, more than a month has passed quietly. The other team members have returned to their country at this time. Tang Mao is still in seclusion here. In a year, he has improved too fast, no matter which magic he is in. Taking advantage of this opportunity to calm down, he needs to sort it out. A few days have passed, and Tang Mao's strength has been completely stabilized. His thunder system has reached the high level perfection, and the ice system is about to break through the 3rd level. The fire system, space system, shadow system, wind system, and summoning system have all reached the high level second level. However, although the thunder system has been perfected, it is still very difficult to break through the super level in one fell swoop. At least, he can't do it now. But even if he can't break through to the super level, the snow girl finally woke up after her cultivation was stabilized. The eldest daughter is no longer a little lolly at this time, but a mature queen. The realm has also reached the monarch level, but according to her weird cry, because Tangmao's realm is too low, she can only exert half of her strength. Faced with his daughter's complaints, although Tangmao was very unhappy, he could only apologize humbly. Who told me that I couldn't practice as fast as others? The eldest daughter criticized, and the younger daughter whimpered to encourage morale. It seemed that her failure to advance was also blamed on her father. In this regard, both Tangmao and Zunu were full of contempt. It was understandable that Zunu blamed her father for being stuck. After all, the eldest daughter was either practicing or on the way to practice. However, Xiao Yanji, the serious pet, either ate or slept without any hard work. However, although there was no hard work, who made her young? Tangmao could only despise him, but he couldn't say anything. Xing Mountain Road, an intruder. Xing Mountain Road, an intruder. Xing Mountain Road, an intruder. At this moment, there were sudden sounds from afar. The high-pitched voices soon echoed throughout the entire sacred mountain, and the solemn ancient bell struck out a deafening sound. I don't know how many years it has not been sounded, and it sounds so heavy. Tangmao walked out of the retreat, and looked into the distance. He saw that the Xing Mountain Road had a dark blue chaotic light interweaving. Oh, I didn't expect that there would be a good show after retreating. Tangmao was not very surprised about this situation. If you calculate the time, it is just the time for Parthenon to intrigue recently. Tangmao called both Snow Girl and Flame Lady back to the contract space, and then jumped up with the 6 wings behind him spread out. Without waiting for the sage here to remind him, the next moment a silver light flashed, and he left here. When he appeared, Tangmao had already arrived at the bottom of the mountain road. Hanji, Pang Lei, ZHU Meng and Bao Leo Tao who happened to be here were all here. Tangmao, why are you here too? Hanji was the first to notice Tangmao's presence when they were watching the battle there with concern. How could I miss the opportunity to witness the slap in the face of Parthenon? Tangmao said calmly. The 4 old men were all stunned. Tangmao was probably the only one who could say such a thing. They didn't think that Mo Fan alone could cause any trouble, even though he had already passed the first level. As for the second level, Mo Fan, who was covered in wounds, passed it while they were chatting. The third statue was a person. Except for the windbreaker with a vertical collar and sharp bloody teeth, there was no difference between him and humans. It had come to life. It stood at the stairs it was guarding, looking at the white giant wolves that were rushing up with a bit of contempt. However, when he felt a blood pressure that made him tremble, he looked down the mountain. When the other party looked at him, Tangmao said directly, "What are you looking at? Get down from here." Although this vampire has been sleeping for many years, he is quite powerful. Since we have met him, we should subdue him. A free thug, why not take him away? After hearing Tangmao shout, everyone present was stunned. Especially Pang Lei, who had been beaten before, wanted to stop him. After all, once the other party lost his restraint, even he might not be his opponent. The next moment, a shocking scene appeared. The powerful Blood Clan warrior actually knelt down on the ground. Pang Lei asked blankly, "What's going on?" Not to mention him, even the other people were full of frustration. After all, they had heard Pang Lei say that this thing was so powerful and terrifying. As a result, he knelt down like this now. Bora actually didn't expect it to be like this, but he clearly felt a terrifying oppression from Tangmao. It came from the depths of his blood. When he woke up, he suddenly found 2 demon bloods, and one was more terrifying than the other. Bora felt that his rest of his life was not so boring. Because of Tangmao, the 3rd level was easily cracked. As for the 4th level, with Tangmao's instructions and Bora's help, although he was wounded, he finally got through it. After the level was over, Bora came to Tangmao's side and stood behind him obediently. Mo Fan, who was dying, climbed up and looked at Tangmao to express his gratitude. He just waved his hand. The reason why he was willing to help him was simply because he was unhappy with the people in the Parthenon. However, it would be extremely difficult for Emofan to save Yizinxia. After all, he might not be able to use the demon system, and there was no black snake to help. In short, it was very suspenseful. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 395, Seren appears. No one paid any attention to Emofan who had entered the door. Panglei and others looked at Tangmao and Bora, a member of the Blood Clan, with confusion. Not only them, but also some knights of the Parthenon were also puzzled. Is Bora, a member of the Blood Clan, stupid? Here, Hanji had a close relationship with Tangmao, and he immediately said, Tangmao, he is a member of the Blood Clan, and my blood is a little special. Do you understand what I mean? Tangmao responded in a low voice. When he said this, Old Man Bao, Hanji, and Zhu Meng immediately reacted. Isn't that the demon system? Bora asked curiously. My dear master, may I ask how you control the demon? Although he surrendered willingly, was this matter really curious to him? Moreover, the demon in Tangmao's body, even his master at the time, could not be compared. There is nothing in this world that I can't control. What's a little demon blood? Tangmao said calmly with his arms crossed over his chest, his face full of grimace. He was obviously pretending, but he acted as if he was being humble. Bora's mouth twitched slightly, but he didn't mean to refute. Even though his strength was several times that of Tangmao, he still chose to be a little brother. As for Bao Leo Tao and others, they simply chose to ignore them. Master, that kid came out, and he also brought out the woman who was to be executed. Bora said in surprise, after seeing the people coming out of the mountain. Is this kid crazy? Hanji said with a black line. Although Emofan was also one of the people who jumped into the source of evil, even if he was a hero of the ancient capital, if he rescued a person who was identified as Seren in such a place, the final result would be death. Even for them, no one could help. Once they get involved, the matter will be even more serious. Emofan, put the person down. If you take her out of the Saints Hall, the Golden Knight and the Judgment Mage will execute you on the spot. Kowlum shouted loudly. Emofan, you'd better think clearly. Once you take her out of the Saints Hall, the Parthenon Temple and the Holy Court will regard you as an accomplice. Although you are the benefactor of the ancient capital's catastrophe, Seren's identity is full of crimes, and accomplices are equally unforgivable. The sage who helped the Huaxia government accept the baptism of the divine seal before also persuaded. Some people persuaded, some threatened, and Emofan kept refuting, and the quarrels above did not stop. However, everyone knew that it was only a matter of time before they took action. And the old man Bao brought Tangmao and others to the mountain peak. As an old priest, he still wanted to help, but unfortunately, they didn't buy it at all. Seeing that both the Parthenon and the Holy Court were ready for battle, it really looked like 100 Emofans would not be enough to die. At this tense moment, a sudden cry came. Palace Mother, something is wrong. A female sage hurriedly came from the direction of the goddess palace on a deer beast. The deer beast stopped in front of the Palace Mother. Seeing this woman so panicked, the Parthenon Palace Mother immediately frowned and shouted, "Why are you so panicked? It's the body of Yizinxia." The female sage was a little speechless, and her whole face was full of fear. The Palace Mother was a little puzzled, and a little impatient. Tell me, what happened? It was cut into 8 pieces. The female sage finally uttered this sentence. The Palace Mother's face changed all of a sudden. She raised her eyes, and there was a bit of murderous intent in her eyes. The knights and sages of the Parthenon nearby were also full of disbelief. Who dares to blaspheme the goddess? The mother of the temple turned her head, and looked at the knights behind her, and said angrily, "Are you knights good for nothings? How could you let such a heretic break into the goddess's temple?" Emofan's matter has not been resolved yet, and here, the goddess was cut into pieces? Yizinxia, that was the goddess of the previous generation. Her body was well preserved in the back hall of the goddess's temple. Only when the new goddess takes over, her body will be cremated and returned to heaven. It was an apprentice maid, Saint Anne's. She seemed to know that she could not escape, so she took poison and committed suicide next to the goddess's body. The female sage said to the mother of the temple. At this moment, the anger of the mother of the temple, the great sage, and several other temple masters suddenly reached the top. Today is probably the most shameful day for the Parthenon. Someone broke through the sacred mountain in public, and not only did he kidnap the criminal who killed the saint, but there were also villains who took advantage of the chaos to blaspheme the goddess of the previous generation. It was simply unforgivable. That was the goddess of the previous generation. There must be a bigger conspiracy behind this outrageous thing, and a force that did not take the Parthenon seriously at all. This is equivalent to declaring war on the entire Parthenon. I have always heard that the most powerful miracle of the Parthenon is the Great Resurrection technique, so I want to try it to see if a person who has been cut into pieces can still be revived. Just as they were helpless and furious, a voice floated out slowly, and the voice was directed at the mother of the temple. The mother of the temple was slightly startled and turned her eyes to a woman who looked not so impressive at all sitting in the guest seat with some disbelief. The woman was wearing a very elegant white dress, which was very appropriate for attending the funeral. She slowly stood up from the panicked crowd, and the awe-inspiring evilness emanating from her body was out of tune with the people around her. She wore a large sun hat and a red lace net that covered her entire face and neck. At most, one could only see the general outline of her facial features, and could not see her true face. Temple Mother Pamixi looked at the person who dared to say such a thing in the Parthenon, and her chest rose and fell violently. Kunti, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Many people recognized this woman immediately when she stood up. It was Kunti from the Ocean Alliance, a female senior executive with considerable prestige in the Coastline Alliance. Who would have thought that Kunti would have such a deep hatred for the Parthenon, and actually sent people to cut Isisha's body into pieces, and even said such shocking words. Kunti didn't care about the accusations and anger of these people at all, and walked leisurely to the highest place. Then, he gently pointed his finger at Judge Rihanna. Judge Rihanna didn't know what happened at all, and suddenly a large stream of black blood spurted out of his mouth. The blood sprayed more than half a meter high, and everyone else was scared and moved away. Bayo Leo Tao and others nearby were all surprised. Even Tang Mao was quite shocked. It must be said that the secret method of the Black Church was really hard to guard against. Fortunately, he himself had demon blood, and was immune to all poisons. Otherwise, if he offended Seren that day and poisoned himself, TSK, Tang Mao really couldn't imagine that. The speed of the toxin erosion was quite fast. The holy judge mage guarding next to Rihanna was furious and rushed to Kunti, who was pretending to be a ghost. If you don't want your judge to become a mummy, get out of my sight. Kunti spoke coldly, with an irresistible order. The holy judge mage was stunned by this momentum. He looked back at Judge Rihanna and found that Rihanna had temporarily survived through his cultivation, but he looked like he could die at any time. Who are you? A holy judge mage questioned. Do you even need to ask? A bunch of idiots. Isn't she the Black Church cardinal you want to capture, Seren? Without waiting for Seren to reply, Tang Mao suddenly walked out. Today is such a good opportunity. This cardinal who threatens the Chinese people should explain himself. Chapter 396, The Conspiracy. Although Tang Mao's voice was not loud, it reached everyone's ears, because everyone's attention was here. As soon as these words came out, the entire peak exploded. Seren? She is Seren? Question mark? Seren, who was named, did not hide, let alone quibble. Instead, she looked at Tang Mao and said slowly, do you know what the end is if you go against the Black Church? The magic aura around Tang Mao continued to riot, and the blood power of the devil in it also boiled up. Looking at Seren, he sneered, I don't know what the end is, but you are dead today. Are you sure? Seren smiled indifferently, looking at the Parthenon's mother and the judge of the holy court, and then said, my friends, but I can't bear to see me die. Puff. As Seren finished speaking, the mother suddenly spurted out a mouthful of black blood. How did you do it? Impossible. The mother's mouth was full of black blood, and she pointed at Seren with disbelief. She is the mother of the Parthenon goddess temple. Apart from being a goddess, she is also the top person in the healing and blessing departments. She can easily dissolve deadly poisons. How could she be destroyed by the dark means of the Black Church? Pharmacy, someone is blocking my way. Do you want to die with me? Saren smiled. She seemed quite familiar with the mother of the temple, Pharmacy, and her tone was like discussing with an old friend. As for Tang Mao, she chose to ignore him. Stop. The mother of the temple couldn't say anything. She looked at Tang Mao and signaled him not to make a move. Tang Mao ignored the mother of the temple, walked towards Saren, and said in a light voice, "You and her die together. What does it have to do with me, Tang?" Saren is not afraid of death. Of course not. She just clearly controls the two highest commanders of the Holy Court and the Parthenon, and the other party dare not touch her. However, after all her calculations, she overlooked the anomaly of Tang Mao. If it was just the first place in a school competition, Saren would not be afraid. It can be said that even a small high-level wizard with the power to release super-level magic is still nothing to her. But the problem is that Tang Mao has the power of demonization. Once he turns into a demon, Saren doesn't think she can handle it. After all, when she was in the ancient capital, she witnessed Tang Mao's horror with her own eyes. Not only Saren had a headache, but also the mother of the Parthenon and a judge of the Holy Court, Rihanna, were also panicking. Pharmacy looked at the knights around her weakly and ordered, "Stop him." The Golden Knight naturally obeyed the order of the mother of the temple and appeared in front of Tang Mao. Saren, who had a headache just now, laughed wildly after seeing this scene. Looking at the temple mother, he sneered, "Pharmacy, you are such a selfish bitch, ha ha ha." Pharmacy ignored Saren's sarcasm. In her opinion, the Black Church can lose a cardinal, but the Parthenon must not lose the temple mother. Now the goddess has not been chosen. Once the temple mother dies, the entire Parthenon will be in chaos. Looking at the people around him, Tang Mao said coldly, "Parthenon, Holy Court? Such two sacred forces are indifferent to the cardinals of the Black Church. Instead, they embarrass a disabled girl. Since Saren has appeared, I think you need to contribute your lives to this world. After all, the existence of such evil people is a huge disaster for any country. Others are afraid of the revenge of the Black Church, but he is different. He knows very well that the cardinal who has a large number of confidants in China is only Saren." The temple mother was almost furious. At this time, Tang Mao said again, "In fact, whether Saren lives or not, whether Yi Xingxia lives or not, it doesn't matter to you, right? After all, what some people want is just the Parthenon soul in Yi Xingxia's body." Du Lang's face changed drastically when he heard what Tang Mao said. "How dare you? Stop talking nonsense and take this kid down for me." With Du Lang's order, those holy judges wanted to take action. However, Bao Lao Tao and others would naturally not sit idly by, especially after hearing what Tang Mao said. Seeing this, Du Lang said angrily, "What are you doing? Are you trying to cover up this kid who insulted the goddess? You must think clearly about what this means." Yu Hanji paused, and for a moment he really didn't dare to take action. He didn't know whether Tang Mao's words were true or not, and whether there was any evidence. In this case, it was indeed an unwise choice to fight with the other party. "Old man, please move aside." Tang Mao walked in front of Hanji, then looked at Du Lang and said, "I think Yi Xingxia should have opened her eyes. She was indeed cut into pieces, but she should not be dead yet. After all, she is waiting to receive the soul. Do you want to go and see it together?" Du Lang's scalp tingled. He didn't understand how Tang Mao knew these things. Moreover, if he continued, their plan would really be ruined. Then he said, "Who do you think you are? No matter what, this girl must die today, and our sentence for her is the Dark Judgment." Tang Mao ignored him, but looked at Mo Fan who was holding Yi Xingxia and receiving her treatment and said, "If you want her to live, there is only one chance, that is to challenge the death god Hala." But even the Holy Sun Wente, who was close to the forbidden spell back then, still failed. "So, you have to think clearly." Mo Fan thanked him when he heard it, as if he wanted to fight. After giving all the help he could, he looked at Du Lang and sneered, "If you have nothing to hide, why are you afraid?" Old man Bao saw that Du Lang seemed to be panicking and asked in a low voice, "How did you know about this? Are you sure?" I have my channels, and Xingxia is not Simseren. All this is just a conspiracy of Yashisha. With Tang Mao's affirmation, old man Bao's momentum was instantly different. Looking at Dulank, he said, Dulank, do you dare to go with us? Dulank didn't dare to take her with him at this time. If nothing unexpected happened, Yashisha would have woken up by now. As for being torn into pieces, that would not cause any substantial harm to her. Once she went, everything would be over. At this moment, Ashiruaya suddenly ran out, and behind her were Merida and the Blue Gold Palace Master. Seeing this, Tang Mao's body was fluctuating with ice element. 8 wings appeared out of thin air behind him, formed by his own wind magic and the fusion of the Snow Girl. The next moment, he flashed, and the surrounding golden knights had no time to react. Ice Crystal Prison. When Tang Mao appeared beside Ashiruaya, he casually held her in his arms. He naturally didn't want to miss this opportunity to be a hero and save the beauty. Then, he casually condensed his hands, and ice walls emerged. The person chasing her was instantly trapped in it. Even though the two were strong, after the Snow Girl merged into her body, the prison she cast was still indestructible. Chapter 397 Dark Sanction. The two of them were trapped, and after seeing so many people here, they were all stunned. Then Melora said, catch Ashiruaya quickly, she is the accomplice who hurt Yashisha. Tang Mao looked at the injured little fox in his arms, smiled and said, this is the first time I have seen you in such a miserable state, since I met you for so long. Did you know that she was in danger and came here to save me? Ashiruaya had no intention of dying, but joked with Tang Mao. She was very cunning, and as soon as she saw the situation here, she immediately understood everything. It seems that Yashisha's plan was not so smooth. Melora saw that Tang Mao not only had no intention of helping, but also chatted with Ashiruaya, and the other knights were standing there motionless, and then looked in the direction of the temple mother and said, what are you still standing there for? The goddess was hurt. Are you indifferent? The temple mother had no intention of paying attention to Melora at all. At this moment, she was just thinking about how Seren would get out. She didn't want to die with her. Of course, as long as she is given a certain amount of time, this little bit of poison is nothing to her. However, the worst thing is that Seren doesn't give her a chance at all. Moreover, even if she wants Seren to leave now, she can't do it at all. The Chinese people also intervened, and their reasons were perfect. Seeing this, Melora looked at Dulank. Others might not know, but she knew that this person was on the same boat with them. Dulank had long wanted to kill Tang Mao. When he saw Melora, he shouted, boy, I think you are one of the people who hurt the goddess, and now you want to protect Ashiruaya. As he said, he had already approached, and went straight to Tang Mao. Although Tang Mao merged with the Snow Girl and his strength was close to that of a superclass mage, he was not a superclass mage after all, and it might not be a problem to deal with the superclass of the first series. However, it was still a little bit short of Dulank's level, especially since this bastard wanted to kill him right away, and he used superclass magic. Tang Mao would naturally not choose to fight. You don't know whether to live or die. At that moment, Tang Mao's eyes were changing, and the unusual blood ink color filled his pupils, deep enough to reflect the entire chaotic sky. Ashiruaya, who was next to Tang Mao, was stunned when she felt the change in Tang Mao's breath. She always knew that this man was very perverted, but she didn't expect that this guy was not only perverted, but also had such a terrifying power in his body? Question mark? Then, Tang Mao's body suddenly became huge, his hair became much longer, and a black tiger shadow appeared. The two shadows next to him were the shadows of the Snow Girl and the Flame Girl. Even though the whole appearance still maintained Tang Mao's original appearance, Ashiruaya felt that he was a completely different person. His change made everyone nearby stunned. Among them, Hanji and Seren were the most shocked, because the feeling that Tang Mao gave them at this time was far from being comparable to the demon that appeared in the ancient capital. Before Dulank could kill him, he was suddenly grabbed by the neck, and the Star Palace collapsed instantly. You bastard, do you know now whether I have the right to speak? Dulank, who was being pinched by the neck at this time, was like an ant. He could be pinched to death at any time. Even someone as strong as Bao Leotao felt his body trembling uncontrollably at the moment when Tang Mao's momentum dispersed. Dulang was completely dumbfounded. He never thought that the young man in front of him, with his high level power, could actually exert such a terrifying power. Question mark? He wanted to say something, but Tang Mao condensed his right hand, and a sword condensed by flames pierced his heart directly. After dealing with Dulang, Tang Mao turned his eyes to Seren. This time, he got involved with the idea of eliminating the trouble forever. Do you really think he is here to save Yi Xingxia and help Emo Fan? That doesn't exist at all. Neither Emo Fan nor Yi Xingxia is worthy of his efforts. When Seren saw Tang Mao looking at him, he was really panicked. Even the temple mother and some of the holy mages of the holy court were panicked. Stop him. The temple mother really didn't want to die, especially to die with Seren. Although the golden knights were panicked, they still stood in front one by one. They were all super class mages. Although they had not yet perfected one system, how terrifying was the power of a super class mage. However, even with the absolute power of destruction, they were still very scared. Because the demon in front of them made them feel full of oppression. Just when Tang Mao was about to take action, suddenly several stones with black energy appeared out of thin air around Emo Fan and the others. Emo Fan looked at these black stones with a puzzled look on his face, vaguely feeling a little familiar, as if he had seen them before. Ashiruaya, who was here, exclaimed, "Sin stones." Before Ashiruaya could explain, several more black sin stones flew through space and landed beside Xingxia. Moffin was afraid that they would hurt Xingxia, so he tried to grab them. As a result, the black stones shook out an extremely powerful dark force, which instantly corroded Moffin's palm. "Don't touch them, you will turn into black water," Ashiruaya warned. Fortunately, even when Ashiruaya reminded him, his reaction speed was fast enough, so the black stone did not corrupt his hand. There were a total of 10 black stones, which were extremely strange. They surrounded Xingxia. Suddenly, all the stones burst out with black light, forming a dark holy judgment mark, which was heavily branded on Xingxia's forehead. Xingxia was at a loss. She could feel that her body was being isolated. She was only one step away from Moffin and Ashiruaya, but it seemed like they were two different worlds. A layer of black light curtain covered the sin stones and also covered her. Seeing this, Emo Fan was stunned. Moreover, his eyes began to change color. However, unlike what he imagined, he did not successfully transform into a demon. Instead, he was in a strong pain, which made him kneel on the ground. He was already injured, and now because of the forced breathing, the indelible pain made him feel like he was about to break. No. Xingxia. It seemed that, because Yi Xingxia was taken away, the pain in his body was ignored. Emo Fan shouted to the sky. While everyone was looking up at the dark energy gathering in the sky, a silver light suddenly appeared around Seren? Chapter 398, Skeleton. The moment Tang Mao sensed the aura of space magic, he rushed over. Although the distance was very close, Seren was not afraid of his fear, because he had grasped the opportunity. The most important thing was that the moment Tang Mao moved, the Golden Knights of Parthenon also took action. Although Tang Mao clawed a little friend, it also gave Seren enough time to escape. Goodbye, Devil Boy. Although he was shocked by Tang Mao's demonic power, Seren still smiled like a winner. Tang Mao was really unhappy with Seren's appearance. The black tiger behind him retreated, and then the flame lady and the snow girl merged together and appeared behind him. Then Tang Mao's arms condensed the power of the element. When the two forces condensed together, a blue phoenix, oh, it should be a icy phoenix, rushed towards Seren faster than Tang Mao. The big bird condensed by the combined force of the two element caused some of the Parthenon high-level knights and holy judges who were blocking the road nearby to be injured or killed by touching them, and they rushed towards Seren unstoppably. All this took only a few seconds. Even if Seren's formation was fast enough, it was still a step slower. After the explosion of boom, the mages not far away were injured on the ground. After all, the lethality of this magic is too wide. Even the super-class mages were repelled a lot. But even so, Seren still escaped. After seeing Seren escape, Tang Mao was furious. He did not hesitate to turn into a demon in front of everyone, just to solve Seren. In the end, he still ran away. Although the previous attack also hit Seren's body, but as the leader of an evil organization, he naturally would not lack funds. With funds, can he still lack equipment? Saren might be seriously injured, but he would never die. Of course, Tang Mao actually didn't expect that this woman was so cunning that she even had a second plan in mind. Exclamation mark. Although he was very upset, Saren had already run away, and there was no place to find her. After all, this was a space array. Who knew where she had teleported to? Tang Mao looked at the temple mother and some mages of the holy court there, and said coldly, "Do you know how many people will die in the hands of the Black Church tomorrow, if Saren is let go today? A bunch of trash who only care about their own interests." Faced with Tang Mao's scolding, the temple mother ignored it. Although it was very embarrassing, it was obviously not the time to anger Tang Mao. After all, the power he showed was too terrifying. Although Tang Mao wanted to tear them apart, he finally gave up the idea. After all, there was no reason to continue to do it now. "Big brother Tang, please help me save Xingxia, please. As long as you can help me save her, my life belongs to you." At this time, Mo Fan, who looked like he would faint at any time, asked for help. HMM. HMM. Just as Mo Fan finished speaking, a loud roar that shook the entire Acropolis came out from the vast dark execution ground. Inside the execution ground, a large area of streets and houses inexplicably turned into a huge black pool. In the pool, which was completely filled with black sewage, a hideous head with a black, horned helmet slowly rose up. Black flying insects appeared in thick black smoke, and clusters of them were like pythons, flying towards the entire dark execution ground. In the pool, in the horned helmet was a face covered with half tentacles, and the entire jaw engine seemed to be hung with densely packed long black beetles. It had a black metal horn that bent backwards, and the horn completely reached the back of its head. The forehead was protected by the horned helmet, but the pair of eyes that shone with a bloody red light in the hollow were extremely terrifying, staring at Xingxia, who was bound by the guilty stone in the center of the dark execution ground. Tang Mao was not going to get involved in this matter. After all, he has always been aloof from it. What he wanted before was to deal with Saren. But now Saren has run away, and the demonization has been used. In addition, he also wants to know what his current strength is. This death god is obviously a good monster for training. Seeing Tang Mao preparing to fight Hala, Ashurui hurriedly said, "The Dark Judgment is the most powerful force in the world. No one has escaped from the Dark Judgment so far. My adoptive father Wente's cultivation was close to the forbidden spell at the time, but he didn't survive, even if it was injured. But, are you worried about me?" Tang Mao ignored what she said, and asked with a smile, "Are you?" Ashurui was speechless. At this time, this bastard is still joking with me? And Mo Fan feels like a dog. What the hell? The woman he loves is under the greatest threat. These two are still talking about love here? But now he didn't even have the strength to speak, and could only hope in Tang Mao. Tang Mao didn't continue to talk nonsense, but rushed towards the black pillar that stood between the sacred mountain and the prosperous city. At the same time, the Parthenon Temple of Faith issued a warning, and the people in this area had been dispersed to the more central safety barrier. The huge city looked empty, and coupled with the shocking black execution ground, it was more like a dark doomsday scene. There was no one in the city. The execution ground stood in the prosperous city, and a lonely and fragile woman was trapped in it. The black guilty stone was still around Xingxia, and the dark holy mark made Xingxia feel like her forehead was burned through, and she was so painful that she was weak and sweating. The dark light hit Xingxia's body, but the body printed was in great contrast with Xingxia. It was a very slender figure, with a strange proportion of waist and legs, unlike ordinary people, and thick black hair fell to the knees. Tang Mao was not interested in this spirit. After all, he could not use it. His goal was to charge directly at Hala. The Greek god of death, one of the most powerful creatures in the world, once killed Wente, whose cultivation was close to that of a forbidden spell mage. No matter how strong a person was, he would have no chance of survival against it. But now Tang Mao rushed straight to the other party. Hala was extremely huge, and its shadow almost covered the Acropolis of Athens. The entire city was like a small country under its iron hoof. No matter where you look, it is so huge. Countless Athenians hid in the city's barrier, but they did not feel the slightest sense of security. Compared with this kind of monster, humans are too small. Chapter 399, The Power of Half-Step Forbidden Spell. Tang Mao just relied on the pure power of destructive thunder to forcibly open a gap in the light wall of the dark execution ground, and then flew directly into it. Just as the dark skeleton was about to stretch out its claws to drag the extremely weak Xingtia into its territory, it was hit by a wave of fierce bombardment from the thunder element. After a boom thunder explosion, the skeleton screamed in pain. The dark skeleton is a true supreme being. Even when it is not injured, it is almost a half-step emperor, right? It is like a dark god, and has never been provoked like this. Immediately, it gave up Xingtia, and looked at Tang Mao. It stepped on its heavy iron hoof, and stretched out its claws to grab Tang Mao fiercely. The dark skeleton's claws were huge, and as it grasped, a tangible dark claw enveloped Tang Mao, enough to claw a mountain. But he was not afraid at all, and did not even intend to dodge. The left hand is fire, the right hand is ice, the two merge into one. Moreover, this time, it is still accumulating power. When attacking Seren before, because of the anxiety, it did not show the true killing power of Ice Phoenix. At the moment when the dark hand grasped it, the Ice Phoenix suddenly shook it away, and then rushed straight to its head. Not only was the opponent's hand shaken away, but the opponent's tiny body like an ant actually fought back. This made Hela extremely angry. On its other hand, a dark fork suddenly appeared to block the impact of the Ice Phoenix. With a boom sound, half of the dark execution ground was frozen into an ice sculpture, and the other half was formed into a sea of fire. Hela's huge body also took a few steps back. This scene made everyone watching the battle on the Parthenon unbelievable. Regardless of whether the Greek god of death is good or bad, everyone was dumbfounded when he fell into a disadvantage at this moment. Thunderstorm Hammer. After transforming into a demon, the thunder system, which was originally explosive, became even stronger. The hammer condensed by thunder made this place full of dark attributes actually form a thunder domain. The next moment, Hela threw out the dark fork in his hand, aiming directly at Tang Mao. Tang Mao danced with the hammer in his hand and smashed it directly. Bang! After the collision, the 8 wings behind Tang Mao floated for a while, and then a sandstorm appeared behind him. With the help of this storm power, his figure suddenly disappeared. When Hela acted, Tang Mao had already appeared above it. The hammer full of absolute destructive power smashed directly on its head. Boom. This hammer can be said to be accurate. Or thunder fell, and then hundreds of black thunderbolts twisted together, hitting Hela's head, and Hela even screamed. Having been hit so hard that he was confused, Hela suddenly felt that he would disintegrate on the spot at any time after being hit. The thunder and lightning continued to hit Hela. Hela seemed to be very afraid of the pain brought by the thunder and lightning, and retreated again and again. The heavy blow of thunder and lightning made Hela extremely irritable. He touched the position of the horn helmet with his hand, and found that there was a big hole on it, which went straight through his head. Those tiny lightning threads were still transmitting on the outer layer of his body, and the numbness and itching pain never disappeared. Hela howled while opening the pores on his body. Countless black corpse worms flew out of the pores, densely forming a group of disgusting looking balls of gas, which were thick and rolling. They flapped their almost invisible wings, and surrounded Tang Mao from all directions. However, Tang Mao would naturally not be unable to cope with a bunch of insects. Flames, ice, and dust combined to create an elemental storm. The moment the insects encountered the storm, they turned into air and disappeared. Hela still didn't care. It seemed that it could release this kind of black corpse insects indefinitely. The number of corpse insects was huge, and it continued to act like a moth flying into a flame. Gravity. At the same time, Tang Mao used spatial gravity to suppress the opponent's huge body. Tang Mao's mental power was originally very strong, and now it was used under the demonization, and the power was directly doubled. Hela could hardly move a step. Ice 1,000 miles. After it could no longer release the disgusting insects, the soul shadow behind Tang Mao changed again. This time, it was a complete snow girl figure. The eldest daughter had already reached the monarch level, but because Tang Mao's strength was still a little low, the strength could hardly be fully exerted. However, in the case of demonization, its power was at the monarch level. After the fusion alone, although it was not as strong as the overall strength of Yanji, the power of the ice system was increased by many times in one breath. With the extreme cold ice of 0 degree, the dark punishment ground was instantly turned into a white mist. That's right, the entire punishment ground was turned into an ice sculpture, including the skeleton. When it was completely unable to move, Tang Mao raised the sledgehammer again. The target was locked on the place where the hammer had hit before. Bang! The hammer hit, and the whole dark execution ground was shaking for a while. The thick ice layer was shattered at this time. The ice layer, that seemed to have been frozen for thousands of years, could not withstand the bombardment. The large buildings nearby were even more unable to resist, and collapsed in an instant. The dark execution ground was not absolutely isolated. Too strong power would definitely affect the normal range. The power of Tang Mao's hammer was almost close to a forbidden spell. Even though the thunder hammer had disappeared, it was still covered with dark clouds and thunder was rolling and bursting. Moreover, these thunderbolts were not aimless bombardments, but were very regularly aimed at the place where Hela was bombed. Hela screamed in pain. The power of this attack reminded it of a humiliation nearly 20 years ago, when it was in its prime. As a result, a human pierced its chest and shattered its heart. If the Dark King had not put a disgusting and dirty insect hole into its body, it would have been difficult for it to survive until now. And now, it was broken again. And it was not the original injured place, but a big hole in its own brain in the armor. The most important thing is that this was originally the space of its own dark domain, but it was completely occupied by Tang Mao's thunder domain at some point. Chapter 400 Destruction Magic. Hela roared, and a thick black gas enveloped the top of his head from his chest. People thought that this terrifying dark creature was going to die, but they didn't expect more black bugs to rush out and gather at the empty shell on the top of his head like returning to their nest. The thunder kept exploding, but it couldn't withstand the insect's resistance without fear of death. This lasted for a while. When the thunder dissipated, a steady stream of bugs used their bodies to fill the deep pit wound on his head. Soon Hela recovered his original appearance, as if he had not been attacked at all. This scene made the ordinary people outside the dark execution ground, even some knights and several big men in China, show horror. It is well known that demons are powerful. However, under such a terrifying bombardment, Hela seemed to be fine. This is a bit outrageous. When Hela recovered, Tang Mao was naturally not idle. At this time, he no longer had the soul shadow of the snow girl behind him, but also had the flame lady. Moreover, the left hand was extremely cold ice, and the right hand was the fire of the blue phoenix. Whether it was fire or ice, it was full of the breath of destruction at this time. Moreover, the elemental energy of the two places was constantly merging together. When Hela was fully recovered, and the black bugs burst out, Tang Mao also completed the fusion. The oversized ice phoenix fire phoenix emerged. This fusion was obviously far more powerful than the previous fusions. After all, this was the destructive magic that Tang Mao had fused with his own fire and ice element. The reason why it took so long was precisely because of his confidence in its power. There has never been any immortal thing in the world, it's just that there are more of them. And what he has to do is to bombard it thoroughly with a wave of bombing. When the giant ice phoenix fire phoenix appeared, Hela immediately felt the threat of death. It was certain that, if it was hit head on, even the Dark King would not be able to save him. However, when he wanted to move, his body was suddenly suppressed by the silver barrier, and there was a sandstorm all around. Who? Hela roared in a hurry. It was really panicking, and not as confident as before. Boom. Bang. But no matter how it struggled, the control was like a big handful of suction, making it unable to move at all. The most important thing was that the sandstorm continued to attack its body. The black swarm of insects had turned into ashes, and it could clearly feel that it was really going to die. Hoo. The roars continued to come out, and Hela's desire to survive was also very strong. While roaring, the power of bombarding the silver energy wall became more and more terrifying. It was like turning its anger into power. Tang Mao didn't care about its impotent rage at all. After all, anger can never really improve strength. It's just that, when you fight desperately, you don't pay attention to defense. Otherwise, where in this world will there be losers? and its own power is not enough to break its own space lock. So what is there for him to care about? With a nearly 8th level mental power and the bonus of demonization, his various systems have been improved. Moo. After the huge ice phoenix cried, it rushed straight to Hela with the destructive ice and fire. The dark execution ground has been directly shattered, and at the same time, half of the entire city of Athens was evaporated into ashes by the flames, and the other half was completely turned into ice sculptures. The Parthenon knights, sages, palace masters, and palace mothers on the sacred mountain were all stunned by the scene in front of them. Especially Isisha in the dark was so angry that her eyes turned red and her fists were clenched tightly. After all, her perfect plan was ruined just like that! Exclamation mark. The holy judges of the holy court were also shocked and angry. You know, the reason why they can have their current status is entirely because of the existence of the death god Hela. However, today's dark sanctions seem to be useless. Because, without Hela's dark sanctions, it can be said that there is no threat at all. The most important thing is, if Tangmao is allowed to leave alive today, how will the two world's top organizations, Parthenon and the Holy Court, survive in the future? Question mark? Moo. But no matter what they think, the Ice Phoenix is already rushing towards Hela. Just when the Ice Phoenix was about to hit Hela's body, it suddenly stopped. In front of Hela, a more terrifying dark force suddenly appeared, and the endless darkness directly enveloped the huge Ice Phoenix. Just now, it was emitting an impact that destroyed everything, but now it dissipated quietly and silently. Seeing the scene in front of her, Tangmao was completely dumbfounded. The weak and powerless Yixingsha behind her was also the same. That's right, if it weren't for the protection of the Parthenon spirit, Yixingsha might have died just now. After all, the big bird condensed by the two element just now was full of a very terrifying sense of oppression. She is a mage who has just entered the high level, and she is also an auxiliary mage. How can she withstand it? On the sacred mountain, everyone saw another scene. The dark execution ground suddenly turned into a ball of black mist, eroding the entire dark execution ground and even the undestroyed Athens. At this moment, no one knew what happened, but the mages with Shadow System felt the trembling from the bottom of their hearts. Exclamation mark. What's going on? Hanji looked at the darkness there, and looked at Baoleo in confusion. Baoleo was naturally knowledgeable, but there were too many unknowns in this world. How could he know what was going on? Even he could not detect the slightest breath in the black mist. The most terrifying thing was that the moment the dark mist spread, Athens seemed to be melted and disappeared without a trace. In the black fog space, Tangmao looked at the black fog in front of Hela with a vigilant face. Even the demonized him felt a trace of inexplicable vigilance. This feeling was the first time in history. Hela, who was originally barking helplessly and even about to go crazy, calmed down. Even the huge head showed an expression of surviving a catastrophe. At this moment, the two elements of ice and fire were ejected directly from the black fog. This was the destructive magic that Tangmao had just released, but its lethality was much weaker at the moment. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.